Part 75. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 742. But it doesn't matter if you come over. Anyway, I will get what I want myself. Murongchawiking's face was gloomy at first, and then he smiled with a smile on his face. There was a strong anger on his handsome and pale face, and he had a long whip in his hand. He threw her to the ground casually, and walked towards the side with slow steps. He walked very fast, but every step he took, his eyes were fixed on Lily, as if he wanted to eat people, which made people extremely excited. Great sense of oppression. Fate is really great. It seems that the old guy named Gan from Tianshan didn't live up to his name. He said he would die, but he survived. Sure enough, he shouldn't have listened to the sorcerer. It's a pity that he killed them too late. His red lips, combined with his bloodless face, looked creepy. Although he was staring at Lily and talking, Lily knew that the fateful person he was talking about could never be her. When she heard that Murongchuiching said that he had killed Mr. Gan and others, Lily felt that he was not telling lies. Murongchuiking's body was very bloody and full of killing intent, and his pupils were frightening to see. The people from Xixiao City haven't come yet, and Ashao is already dead. It is conceivable that the others have not appeared at this time, and they must not be able to come. Murongchuiking looks like he is possessed by a maniac. Feeling like crazy, Lily pulled Li Yangzi's chair and took 2 steps back. Murongchuiking saw her little move and couldn't help but sneered. Hide. Where do you think you can hide by taking 2 steps back? After living for so many years, you are still looking like this stupid person. Murongchuiching frowned and smiled at first, then turned his face as if he were turning over a book. His face suddenly changed. He became extremely sinister. No one from Xixiao City can escape. I advise you to be smarter and get over here. Otherwise, I won't be able to control myself. His palms loosened and tightened, and his expression showed obvious anger. His face seemed to be suppressing anger. Come here. Listening to Murongchui's favorable tone, Lily guessed that he should have killed the uncle and nephew of the Gan family of the Tianshan section at the same time. She still wanted to destroy Xixiao City. She didn't like Murongchuiking very much, and she couldn't help but think that he had gone crazy. Did you kill people from the Tianshan sect? Now the secret guard leaders around Li Yangzi in Xixiao City have been killed by Murongchuiching, and the 2 brothers Li Zhaocheng are not in the city at this time. Mrs. Li is still in seclusion. Lily has been practicing martial arts for a period of time. She has some spiritual power in her body, but her martial arts is not deep. Lily would not be afraid if Li Yangzi entered the mission normally, but he entered the body of a dead person. After entering, he would not be afraid. I fell asleep for a while, and it didn't take long for me to wake up. At this moment, her legs are not fully healed. Murongchuiching must have been prepared to break into Xixiao City. For some reason, Lily has a premonition that this task has not been completed at all, even if it seems that she has changed the original owner's wedding night and Li Zhaoyang was destined to be together. But Lily instinctively felt that if she died now, this mission would have failed. She could only wait for a while, but fortunately brother Li Zhaocheng didn't leave for long. She just hoped that someone in the city would survive and be smart enough to go out and report the news. These old guys are not good at fortune telling. They said that they would die if they did not survive the 18th century. But now he has survived. Since he can't die, I will naturally let them die first. Murongchuiching grinned and said, now even if the people of the Tianshan sect were killed by him. There was a sinister tone in his tone. On the road to Huanquan, wouldn't it be nice to be with the Li family? The Tianshan sect is good at the art of divination. Their martial arts are not very high, but Tianshan's reputation and status are transcendent in the world. Many years ago, the Tianshan sect owed a favor to the Li family, so Mr. Gan went down the mountain to diagnose and treat the young master. Unexpectedly, he would die in the hands of Murongchuiching in the end, and it seemed to be related to Ming Bei. Lily vaguely felt that this mission was not as simple as the original owner had shown in his memory. Murong Chuiqing had gone crazy now and dared to break in. Not only did Xiao City kill people, but they even spared the disciples of a sect with a great reputation like the Tianshan section. If something happened here, he would definitely not be able to escape the encirclement and suppression by the Jianghu people. Even if the fortune teller from Tianshan miscalculated, what does it have to do with you? When Li Yangzi heard Lily ask this, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. The mission this time was indeed not what Ming Lily had originally imagined. It was so simple. He originally wanted to ask Murong Chuiqing for the answer, but he didn't expect Lily to get to the point right away. When Murong Chuiqing heard this, his red eyes stared straight at Lily. He couldn't help laughing for a long time. He laughed softly at first, but then he started laughing like a lunatic. It has nothing to do with me. They are not good at learning. They said that people will die if they don't live to be 18, but now he is alive and well. It has completely embarrassed all the ancestors. If it weren't for the Tianshan sect's miscalculation, if it wasn't he mistakenly believed the words of the charlatan. At first, he would never agree to marry Ming Lily into the Li family in Xiao City. So later, he watched helplessly as the poor little girl who only belonged to him was now standing in front of him. He stretched out his hand to call her back, but she never came back. I cleaned up the Tianshan sect, and the Tianshan patriarch should thank me. Murong Chuiqing snorted and stretched out his hand towards Lily. Don't force me, I'll say the last thing, come here. Xiao City will be destroyed soon. If you don't want to die, you should be smarter and stop acting stupid. He walked closer and closer, standing in front of the corpse of the secret guard whose throat bone he had crushed before. He stretched out his legs and kicked the pale face, with a happy smile on his face. What does it have to do with you whether my husband will die at the age of 18, even if the Tianshan warlock miscalculated his fortune? What does it have to do with Murong Chuiqing? As soon as Lily said this, Murong Chuiqing laughed. He lightly kicked Ah Xiao's head with his feet. When he heard this, he stomped down with all his strength. There was a soft bang sound, and the head suddenly opened like a watermelon being stepped on, black and red. Blood and white brains were splashed all over Murong Chuiqing's body. Lily himself was not a good man, and he had killed people with his own hands. But when he saw Murong Chuiqing crushing the corpse's brains with just a few moves, some of the juice splashed on him. On his hand, he casually reached out and flicked it away, feeling a little sick in his heart. If he didn't die, how could you become a widow? After he said this, it was as if his patience had been exhausted, and the smile on his face instantly disappeared. Come here. If you come here now, I will spare his life, he coaxed softly, and the corners of his slightly grinned mouth showed a bit of white teeth, glowing with cold light. It was so creepy to watch that Lily began to hear him talking about wanting to become a widow. A strange thought passed through her mind before she had time to think about it. Hearing Murong Chuiqing's words, he couldn't help but laugh again. If I really come here, I'm afraid my man will die faster, right? Murong Chuiqing was stunned, his face darkened, and he was about to speak, but suddenly there was a dull boom sound from the ground, and the entire Xiao city seemed to shake twice, followed by a buzzing sound. Stand up! A large number of birds flew out of the mountains behind the city. Lily was a little unsteady when she stood. Li Yangzi reached out and pulled her into his arms. When Murong Chuiqing saw this scene, his eyes were about to burst and a look of anger appeared on his face. About to speak. A loud rumbling sound was heard, and the ground shook twice. A large torrent surged down from the mountainside. With lightning speed, the flood washed down towards Xiao city. The water flow was fast, as if there was a waterlogging disaster, and it flowed faster and faster. In the blink of an eye, Lily's calves were already soaked in the water. She thought of Murong Chuiqing's words about destroying Xiao city, and she felt extremely shocked and angry. The water was now getting stronger and stronger. At first, it was just a stream of water falling straight down like the Milky Way in the nine heavens. Then it seemed as if someone was pouring water straight down from a big pot. The water rose rapidly, and the sound of people crying could be heard outside the city. Li Yangzi hugged Lily, and the chair flew up lightly. The water broke down many trees halfway up the mountain. Some soil and gravel were also washed away, and the water flowed down, causing great damage. When Lily was carried by Li Yangzi and flew up, she looked down and saw many people and their houses outside the city being swept away by the water flow. He rushed directly into the moat next to Xixiao City, turned around and disappeared. The cries of many people were mixed in, but they were quickly drowned by the water flow. The city lord's mansion was submerged in water in an instant, and Lily's body was already soaked. Li Yangzi used his spiritual power to maintain the balance of the chair, and looked around, trying to find a place to stay first, and move Lily. After sending it over, the two wheels on the chair were spinning smoothly. Water was flowing down. Lily wiped her face. Suddenly, a green shadow broke through the water and rose straight up. Rushed towards Li Yangzi. Logically speaking, a character in the plot should have an innate sense of awe for Li Yangzi, but now Murong Chuking dared to attack him, and the moves were ruthless. It was obvious that he had murderous intentions. Li Yangzi held Lily with one hand. Due to the inflexibility of his lower body, his body's strength was greatly reduced. The water below was surging, but above him Murong Chuking seemed to be going crazy. The long sword in his hand was attacking Li Yangzi regardless. His sword energy was so powerful that Ming Bei remembered it. Murong Chuiqing only used the long whip. This was Lily's first time seeing Murong Chuiqing use the sword. His swordsmanship was far more flexible than the long whip, and the sword energy seemed to be able to cut someone with one strike. At this moment, Murong Chuiqing was soaked to the skin, with a cold expression, and his handsome pale face was twisted and ferocious. When he and Li Yangzi exchanged two moves and separated, he was breathing heavily, staring at Lily, tearing off his sleeves and pulling off one of his hair. His wet long hair was pulled up, and a red sword was bitten between his mouth. The blade of the sword should have cut his lip. The pale face reflected the blood stains on his lips, making him look even more scary. At this time, brother Li Zhaocheng rushed over from afar, but it was still too late. The moment the water came down, the entire Xixiao city was suddenly submerged in the water. The two brothers tried hard to save people, but it was obvious that they could not save much at this time. People got up. Xixiao city suffered heavy losses this time. Not only was its foundation built over hundreds of years destroyed, but the people in the city also suffered a large number of casualties. Li Zhaokeng's eyes turned red at this moment. He picked up a disciple and threw it at a big tree not far away. As he passed by, Li Zhaoyang pulled him. He turned around and saw Li Yangzi and Murong Chuking fighting together in mid-air. Help! Murong Xiang'er was so frightened that her face turned pale. She followed Li Zhaocheng all the way back. She originally thought she could stay on this trip, but she didn't expect that the outbreak broke out from nowhere before she reached the outside of Xixiao city. The mountain spring rushed down, and she was knocked around in the carriage. The horse was frightened and struggled desperately. The carriage was originally made of wood and could float, but the water flow was already fast, and the horse was heavy after being frightened. The strength of the struggle caused the carriage to sink, and Murong Xiang'er couldn't help shouting. In the carriage, Ming's mother also pulled the wooden board tightly, opened her mouth and poured some water in, and she became a little dizzy. At this moment, I couldn't even save myself. Even if I heard Murong Xiang'er's cry, how could I have the energy to save her? On the contrary, Ming Yujian, who was sitting outside the carriage, heard his sweetheart's voice and gritted his teeth to hold his breath. After cutting the horse's reins and making the carriage float, the two women in the carriage climbed out. The water flowed faster and faster, and the carriage floated further and further away. Ming Yujian didn't have time to ask Ming's mother, so she subconsciously shouted to Murong Xiang'er, "Miss Xiang'er, are you okay?" Murong Xiang'er looked embarrassed at this time. The jewelry on her head had been washed away by the current. She couldn't open her eyes at this moment. How could she answer Ming Yujian's words? She was inexplicably panicked, and when she heard Ming Yujian ask her if she was okay, an unknown fire welled up in her heart. Even a fool could see that her current situation was not good. Ming Yujian also asked her if anything was okay. She opened her mouth to curse, but a big wave came over and filled her mouth. She quickly shut it tightly. He closed his mouth and never dared to speak again. Ming's mother clung to the broken board in embarrassment. The force used was a bit too strong, and the nails that were originally well maintained were almost broken at this time, and it hurt terribly. Her state of mind at this time seemed to be back to the time when she was being chased and panicked, when she was carrying a pair of children. Was on the run and had no one to rely on, but at that time she had Murong Fan come to save her. This time her son asked if Murong Xiang'er was okay. His mother was lying on the carriage very hard. On the broken wooden board, I saw that the current was very strong and was about to be carried further and further away. But he stretched out his hand to support Murong Xiang'er. This scene made Ming's mother feel inexplicably cold. The water rose higher and higher, almost reaching the level of the moat outside the city. Once the water rose high, Xixiao City would be submerged in the flood. If she was washed into the river, even the gods might not be able to save her. She watched the people of Xixiao City who were struggling in the water screaming and being rushed into the river. They turned around and disappeared. She was so panicked that she couldn't cry out. She just kept chanting her son's name, Yijian, Yijian, save my mother. Perhaps Ming's mother's shouting attracted the attention of brother Li Zhaocheng. When the two brothers heard the shouting, they rushed over. Li Zhaocheng grabbed Ming's mother, and Li Zhaoyang pulled Murong Xiang'er up. Murong Xiang'er originally hugging the board tightly, Ming Yujian kept pushing her up under the board to prevent her from being washed away by the current. At this time, the two of them were covered with water and there was no place to stay in the river. Li Zhaoyang also felt quite uncomfortable when mentioning the two of them. Feeling tired, her brows suddenly furrowed. Murong Xiang'er keenly felt Li Zhaoyang's tense arms. Countless thoughts flashed through her mind. Without thinking, she lifted the wooden board in her hands. Let go. Ming Yujian originally wanted to reach out and hug her leg, but the next moment Murong Xiang'er stretched out her leg and kicked him in the face. He might as well have received this kick, and the movement of hugging Murong Xiang'er's leg froze, and he was stunned. He was stunned, with a look of disbelief on his face. The next moment, his body fell straight down, and fell into the river with a plop. After spinning around, Ming Yujian's shocked, somewhat panicked and desperate face quickly appeared. Submerged by the current, he didn't even have a chance to shout, before he disappeared into the water and was never seen again. No, Ming's mother couldn't help but scream when she saw this scene. She had witnessed Murong Xiang'er's kicking behavior with her own eyes. At that moment, her brain felt as if someone had hit her with a stick. I was so shocked that I lost my voice after shouting, and couldn't recover for a while. The Li brothers threw the two women to the side and hung them securely on a big tree. Dozens of moves had already passed between Li Yangzi and Murong Chuking in mid-air. At this time, the two of them separated. Murong Chuiqing gasped for breath, and the soaked clothes clung to his body. After this fight, they were already a little dry. In comparison, Li Yangzi was wearing a silver soft robe, and she still looked like a fairy. Li Yangzi had a certain suppression on Murong Chuking originally, but with Lily in his arms, Murong Chuking, a lunatic, showed no mercy in every move. After discovering that he was more protective of Lily than he was of her. After that, he shamelessly began to attack her everywhere, which caused Li Yangzi a certain amount of trouble. Therefore, until now, neither of them can do anything to the other. Not far away, the Li brothers had their hands free and wanted to rush here. After the upstream water flooded Xiao City, the accumulated water had been released. The water was much gentler than before. Some people grabbed the trees and failed. The flooded people already knew how to swim and found a place to hide, and there was no need for the Li brothers to rescue them. If they waited until the Li brothers were free, they would not be able to deal with Li Yangzi now. If the father and son both going into battle, he would never be Li's opponent today. Even if he could escape, it would be absolutely impossible to take Lily away again. When Murong Chuiqing thought of this, his face showed a bit of ferocity. He had planned it for so many years, he had put so much effort into it, and even for this day, he did not hesitate to go against his will and risk offending the entire martial arts world. It's better to kill her on the spot today, at least he won't get it, and he can't let her belong to others. Since the general can't kill you, then I want you two to die on the spot. Murong Chuiqing took a few deep breaths, and the clothes on his body began to move automatically, and a large amount of spiritual power began to rise in his body. His skill suddenly increased. It seemed that it was several times deeper than before, and his eyes were a little red. The long sword in his hand gave off a coquettish red light, and his body bent like a bow and quickly backed away. His face turned red, and there were veins on his forehead. They all burst out, and the long sword in his hand flew out like a shooting star, stabbing Li Yangzi and the two of them. When Li Zhaocheng saw the scene in the distance, his eyes were bloodshot and he was so frightened that he couldn't scream. Li Yangzi sighed. He signaled Lily to sit still and spread his hands flat. Frozen for thousands of miles, he spat out 4 words slowly, and a large amount of spiritual power also leaked out of his body, and the surrounding air dropped rapidly. Frozen for thousands of miles is the unique secret skill of Li's Northern Ming dynasty, which Li has created since Xiao City. Except for the first-generation city lord, no one has been able to learn this trick, including Li Zhaocheng, but Li Yangzi is different. If he wants to know these things, as long as his physical condition allows, he can do it just thinking about it. A large amount of water vapor turned into dots of snowflakes and fell down, surrounding Murong Chuiqing, who seemed to have exhausted all his strength. There were more and more frost spots. The next moment, his whole body was wrapped in the ice in a bowed posture. Li Yangzi suddenly clenched his palm and shouted, "Broken!" The ice controlled by his spiritual power suddenly broke apart and turned into invisible sword energy. Humph! His face instantly turned pale, and his body felt as if it had been cut into pieces by 1,000 cuts. All of a sudden his skin and flesh were torn to pieces. But because he had just been wrapped in ice, his body was extremely cold, and his skin and flesh were cut open. At this moment, not even a drop of blood fell. After suffering such a severe injury, he could no longer maintain his figure in mid-air and began to fall straight down. Li Yangzi also exhausted the spiritual power stored in his body and fell down while holding Lily. The scarlet sword that he had temporarily immobilized with his spiritual power was still rushing towards him, but it happened to be dodged because he fell down. The scene of the two fighting each other was watched by everyone not far away. Murong Xiang'er was climbing on the tree with both hands at this time. Seeing this scene, he was stunned and speechless. Just now Li Yangzi shouted "frozen 1,000 miles. When she was writing, the feeling that exceeded the power of nature for a moment made her open her mouth, and all that was left in her eyes were the snowflakes in the sky. She had never thought that there were people with such martial arts skills. In comparison, although Li Zhaoyang awesome, but compared with Li Yangzi, it seemed like nothing. She felt a little jealous in her heart. When she saw Li Yangzi holding Lily in his arms when he fell, an inexplicable resentment surged into her heart, and her eyes flashed. Suddenly, someone grabbed her hair and shouted, "Give my son his life. Ming's mother is going crazy now." Murong Xiang'er's previous action of kicking Ming Yujian into the water made her feel boundless resentment. She was rescued by Murong Fan and married into Murong's family with her 2 children. She fawned over Murong Xiang'er and despised Murong. If Xiang'er was born, even because her daughter liked her future husband, she agreed without hesitation to Murong Fan to marry Ming Beihe to the mortal young city lord to celebrate her death. When her daughter had a conflict with Murong Xiang'er, she stood by Murong Xiang. On her side, Murong Xiang'er destroyed her only hope. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 743. Without his son, who can he rely on in the future? Although Murong Fan dotes on her now, after all, the two of them are just a couple, and they are not the first couple. After a few decades, who knows whether he will like another woman? Her son was her foundation for the rest of her life, but now she was killed by Murong Xiang'er. Ming's mother wanted to cry, but she couldn't do it at the moment. The water below was flowing slowly, and the corpses of many dead people were floating up. Li Zhaocheng flew forward in shock, and caught Li Yangzi and Lily before they fell into the water. Li Zhaoyang was a little lost, and he thought he was Zixiao. He is a rare genius from the Li family in the city, but he has not practiced freezing thousands of miles. The move Li Yangzi just used caused a huge blow to Li Zhaoyang, the proud man of heaven. Ahem, Murong Chuiqing, who everyone thought would be killed by the attack just now, floated up from the water. The blood flowing from his body had dyed the surrounding water red. At this moment, a pair of red eyes were still staring at the sky. Lily looked at her with a crazy look on her face. He's not dead yet, Li Zhaocheng was furious. Murong Chuiqing assassinated his son that day and suddenly appeared from Zixiao city after he left. He had just fought with his son again. All fools knew that Zixiao something happened in the city, and he couldn't be separated from it. Li Zhaocheng had murderous intention in his heart. He threw Lily and the two of them into the pine tree on the mountain wall and hung them tightly. He was about to turn around and kill Murong Chuiqing, but Li Yangzi shook his head weakly. Here we go. Don't rush to kill him. He deliberately spared Murong Chuiqing's life, but he couldn't tell the real reason to Li Zhaocheng at the moment, ask questions. He simply said two words, then leaned in. In Lily's arms, the breath became a little weak. He had accumulated energy for a long time. Just to give Murong Chuiqing a blow and defeat him at that moment, the energy was exhausted at this moment. If Li Yangzi hadn't withdrawn his hand at the last moment and retained some spiritual power in his body. At this time, he was probably going to faint on the spot. When Li Zhaocheng heard that he wanted to question him, he bitterly picked up the struggling Murong Chuiqing from the water. After experiencing this disaster, many people in the city at the foot of the mountain burst into tears. The surviving people in Zixiao city staggered towards the mountain. Li Zhaocheng looked coldly at Murong Chuiqing, who was seriously injured and coughing up blood. However, he seemed not to notice Li Zhaocheng's cannibalistic gaze at all. Instead, he kept staring at Lily, who was hugging Li Yangzi, with a sinister look in his eyes, and the veins on Li Zhaocheng's forehead jumped. Murong favored me, I shouldn't have let you escape last time. What is the deep grudge between the Li family and the Murong family that made you deliberately plot to harm my Li family? First, he killed his son by any means, and then another he planned to accumulate water from the Wu River and flood the city built by the Li family for hundreds of years. When Li Zhaocheng said this, he listened to the cries of the people below the city, saw the city in a mess after the flood gradually receded, and saw the corpses of many people. If Li Yangzi hadn't said he wanted to question him, he would have really wanted to slap Murong Chuiqing to death. Li Zhaocheng was so angry that he was trembling all over, but Murong Chuiqing didn't look at him at all. He only stared at Lily. He was covered in injuries now and was a little unsteady on his feet. His dark eyes were like two deep pools, and every time he coughed, as soon as he heard it, blood came out of his mouth and dripped to the ground, but he seemed not to feel it. Breathing heavily made Lily's hair stand on end. If the Murong family can't come up with an explanation for what happened this time, I will make Murong Fan pay the price, Li Zhaocheng was furious when he saw Murong Chuiqing's appearance, and couldn't help shouting loudly. Murong Chuiqing heard this. Finally looking away from Lily, he chuckled twice. Every time he laughed, the wounds on his body were touched. After his body recovered from the injuries caused by being frozen for thousands of miles, the frozen blood flowed out. 2 strands of blood dripped from the corner of his mouth along his pale chin, with an expression like a ghost. Looking for Murong Fan? Then you have no choice but to go to the underworld to find him. Ming's mother, who was originally lifeless and still staring at Murong Xiang'er fiercely, was stunned for a moment when she heard this. She held it in her hands. After experiencing the pain of losing her son and nearly being killed in the flood just now, Ming's mother had long since disappeared. The previously gorgeous woman looked extremely haggard. Her eyes were full of red bloodshot eyes. She stared at Murong Chuiqing. Murong Xiang'er couldn't help but screamed, "Brother, what are you talking about? Dad is so good, how could he die?" Murong Chuiqing caused such a big trouble. The reason why Murong Xiang'er was still calm at the moment was because she thought that her father would come out to clean up the mess behind her. Now that Murong Chuiqing said that Murong Fan was dead, she couldn't help but shake her head. To begin, how could Dad die? Dad is a very skilled martial artist and is now in his prime. How could he die? She was still waiting for Murong Fan to support her and make the decision. She was still waiting for Murong Fan to give her the decision to marry into the Li family. She wanted to marry Li Zhaoyang. Even though she had seen Li Yangzi just now, her martial arts might be better than Li Zhaoyang, but Lily, even if she can marry such a young city lord with outstanding martial arts skills, she should never be worse than a loser. What's more, her marriage to Li Zhaoyang has already been decided. Murong Chuiqing caused trouble. If Murong Fan dies, she will be ruined for the rest of her life. Got it? It's impossible for him to die. Are you lying and lying? Murong Xiang'er's face turned pale and her expression was a little ugly. Stop joking. I dug out his eyes that couldn't be closed with my own hands. It's a pity that I didn't know if you would believe it, otherwise I could have given them to you to play with. Murong Chuiqing grinned. His mouth was bloody now, and when he smiled, it made everyone present involuntarily feel chills on their backs. He killed his biological father, but said in an understatement that he dug out his eyes. Killing is not terrible. In the martial arts, it is not impossible for father and son to turn against each other, but like Murong Chuiqing, there is really no one who is cruel, and treats human life as nothing. Even though Li Zhaocheng is well informed, he can't help but feel cold in his heart at this moment. Murong Chuiqing's expression does not seem to be lying. If such a madman dared to kill his own father and destroy Xixiao City, he probably wouldn't feel guilty about killing anyone at all. After all, Murong Fan is also your biological father. Why did you want to kill him? Murong Chuiqing fell to the ground with some difficulty and crossed his legs. His eyes fell on Lily again. He stretched out his hand to wipe the blood dripping from the corner of his mouth and hummed, without his physical strength, how can I defeat the Li family, how can I kill all your Li family? As he spoke, his expression became a little impatient, as if he didn't understand why Li Zhaocheng would ask such nonsense. His eyebrows were tightly wrinkled, and his expression was extremely cold. When Li Zhaocheng heard what he said, he was so angry that he panicked. It was just that Murong Chuiqing failed to assassinate Li Yangzi that day. Now the water has flooded Xixiao City and caused such great harm to Xixiao City. His wife still doesn't know if she has. Now that everyone else has fallen into his own hands, he is still so arrogant and has no regrets at all. He immediately raised the sword in his hand. My Li family has no grudge against you. Why do you want to attack my Li family? Everyone present vaguely believed Murong Chuiqing's words about killing Murong Fan, especially Li Zhaoyang. When Murong Chuiqing assassinated Li Yangzi, Li Zhaoyang personally blocked him and drove him away. Although Murong Chewiking's martial arts at that time was high, but he was 70% sure that he could seriously injure Murong Chewiching and escape unharmed. But now, only more than a month later, Murong Chewiching felt even more dangerous. Li Xiaoyang even felt a sense of oppression from him, and his inner strength, it seems that it has been deep for decades for no reason, and there is a hint of murderous intent and evil. I can never be his enemy now. His skills have improved so fast. The martial arts that Murong Fan has practiced hard all his life may really be destroyed by him. Gotta go. For what? Who told your son of the Li family not to die quickly enough? When Murong Chewiching said this, there was a bit of cruelty in his eyes. That group of old people in Tianshan clearly said that the second generation of the Li family would not survive 10 years. 8. If he can't live to be 18, then Ming Lily will marry him, but why is he still alive? He has calculated, Li Yangzi cannot live to be 18, he will marry Ming Lily, and then he will marry Ming Lily. If he hadn't become a widow because he believed in the divination of those useless losers from the Tianshan sect, he wouldn't have gone to such great lengths, but in the end he had given up Ming Lily and couldn't take it back now. The Li family didn't expect to get such an answer, and they were all stunned for a moment. Li Xiaocheng couldn't help frowning and shouted, "Absurd! Whether my son lives past 18, what does it have to do with you? Marrying the Ming family is the same. What did the Murong family personally agree to at the beginning, and how does it have anything to do with my son not surviving to be 18? Murong Chewiching no longer wanted to talk to Li Xiaocheng. He only stared at Lily with his eyes. Ming's mother smiled bitterly and coughed up some water in her belly. "Favor, I know that you brothers and sisters hate us, mother and son, but Zaya, he has been beaten by you since he was a child. Even if you are angry, you should let it go. Why do you want her to become a widow even after she gets married? Do you take it seriously? You hate her so much that you have to let her die to be happy as a widow?" Ming's mother really regretted it at this time. Her son died, and now her body can't be found. Murong Fan, who was her pillar of support, may also die in the hands of Murong Chewiching. Over the years, she has always been considerate to Murong Xiang'er and endured humiliation. Even her biological daughter is alienated. Without her son, she has no support for the rest of her life. Her daughter is no longer close to her. Ming's mother is in pain at the moment, but her eyes are dry and she can't shed tears. Angry? Why should I be angry with her? It's because the people in Zixiao City are bad, and it's Li Yangzi who deserves to die but is still alive. Why should I hate her? She is mine. Murong Chewiching finally raised his eyelids after hearing Ming's mother's words. His words shocked everyone. Ming's mother and Murong Xiang'er were both startled. Everyone couldn't believe their ears. Murong Chewiching at this moment, it turned out that Lily was his, and he didn't hate Lily at all. Such words came from Murong Chewiching, which made Lily feel dumbfounded and wanted to laugh out loud. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 744. Aren't you angry with her? Then, why did you beat her and beat my daughter to the point? Ming's mother was so frightened that she couldn't make a sound when she opened her mouth. That day she entered with her 2 children. In the Murong family, Ming Bei was often beaten to death by Murong Chewiching. She knew this in her heart, but she did not dare to offend the future leader of the Murong family. She was deeply afraid that she would be rejected by Murong Fan and return to her former wandering life. Was hunted again, so when her daughter was suffering, she only asked Ming Lily to endure it. She thought that Murong Chewiching hated her to the core, so she also disliked Ming Lily and wanted to kill her, just like Murong Xiang as a child. I never thought that Murong Chewiching would actually say that he didn't hate Ming Lily at all, but instead seemed to have feelings for Ming Lily. Ming's mother found it a bit unbelievable. She even wanted to laugh under such circumstances, but Murong Chewiking's expression didn't look like he was joking. He was even a little weirdly serious, which made Ming's mother get goosebumps. Why should I be angry with her? It's my fault. I shouldn't have sent her to the Li family and let others touch her. When Murong Chuiqing said this, his eyes darkened again, and some mysterious storms filled his eyes. His eyes began to focus. If I had known that Li Yangzi would not die, I should have married her to anyone. She slaughtered everyone on the wedding day. I shouldn't have let anyone touch her. His voice became louder and louder as he spoke. Yu Qiu, his eyelids drooped, and the gloom between his brows was too thick to be removed. His hands hidden under the shabby sleeves clenched tightly into fists, and veins jumped up on the back of his hands. I had known this. On the wedding day it's time to flood Xixiao City. He had made so many preparations. Ever since he found out that Li Yangzi would not survive until 18 o'clock, he had been sending people to dig canals and open rivers to divert water. Unexpectedly, it failed in the end, all because of those useless things in Tianshan. They can't calculate a person's life, but they claim to be able to predict a person's life. Death is not a pity. A trace of madness emerged under Murong Chewiking's eyelids again, and his handsome and pale face looked a little ferocious and twisted. Lily intuitively felt that the key to her mission was coming, and she listened for a long time. Only then did he speak. If Xixiao City is flooded, if something happens to my husband and I become a widow, what good will it do to you? You have become a widow, aren't you mine? Murong Chuiqing raised his face, with a confused and childlike look on his face. When Lily spoke, his original ferocious expression became a little aggrieved. Your mother married my father after she became a widow. If you become a widow, wouldn't you be mine? I know I shouldn't have hit you before. This is all Murong Fan's fault. He taught himself that it was right to hit you. Kissing and scolding is love. In fact, Murong Chuiqing liked Ming Lily when he first saw her. At that time, everyone thought that he was very resentful of Ming Lily because of his mother's death, so he whipped her. But no one understood him. He really loved Ming Lily, but he didn't know how to love her. When he was a child, he was emotionally indifferent and not good at communicating with others. Murong Fanfu was a treacherous person. He inherited his father's blood in his bones. He was cold, twisted and perverted. People in Murong's family were afraid of him since he was a child. He didn't know how to love someone. His mother has been seriously ill for many years and cannot teach him. When he fell in love with Ming Lily, the only person he could turn to was his father, who taught him martial arts since childhood, but Murong Fan misled him. Everyone thought that he beat and scolded Ming Lily because he hated Ming's mother for marrying in and killing his own mother, but in fact, he was not that uncomfortable after his mother died. His mother had been seriously ill for many years. He will inherit the Murong family in the future, and there is not much close relationship between him and his mother. When she died, Murong Chuiqing was not so sad. He hit Ming Lily just because Murong Fan saw what was in his heart. But in order to marry Ming's mother, he knew that Lily was Murong Chuiqing's nominal sister, and Murong Chuiqing was the one who liked it. Murong Fan didn't allow his son to get Ming Lily and cause a scandal. Murong Fan spent so much effort to get Ming Mu, he couldn't let go, even for his son. He couldn't give up his childhood desire, so when his son didn't know how to love, he taught his son to fight for a kiss. Swearing is love. He taught Murong Chuiqing to beat Ming Lily, and she will always have his presence in her eyes. Murong Chuiqing believed it to be true. He originally had an extreme temperament. When he was young, he had a violent temper and frequently killed people. In order to control him, Murong Fan once he was thrown into the secret guards and trained for many years. His temper was mysterious and unpredictable. He didn't know what loving and loving meant, and his relationship with his mother was not deep. No one taught him how to get someone and like someone. How to hold her in your arms. When Murong Fan taught him to hit Ming Lily, and his figure would appear in her eyes, Murong Chuking really believed it. When he swung the whip at Ming Lily for the first time, he was the only one in those beautiful eyes. The shadow was there, even though he felt a little weird when he saw her frightened expression, he could only see himself in her eyes. He was really happy. Her eyes were as bright as stars, it's just that his pupils sometimes tremble when he sees him. He actually feels very distressed. He also wants to talk to Ming Lily, but Ming Lily is afraid of him. If he doesn't move his whip, Ming Lily will take a detour when he sees him. Only when he hits her, she will only see him in her eyes, she will listen to his words and stay, she will only pay attention to him, and he likes this feeling that he is the only one in her eyes. After beating her for several years, she became more and more frightened. He wanted to get Ming Bei forever. He only saw himself in her eyes, and only showed her laughter and joy to him. But her mother was a widow and married Murong Fan. If he wanted to get her, Murong Chuking had to find a way to make her a widow. He had calculated so much that he married her to Xiao City, but when he knew that she liked Li Xiaoyang, Murong Chuking didn't know what liking meant at that time. He overheard others saying that he liked Li Xiaoyang, and knew that Ming Bei when Murong Chuangqing loved Li Xiaoyang and wanted to live with him and wanted to be touched by him, he became crazy with jealousy. He knew that Bei belonged to him alone, so how could he like others? He had loved her for so many years, and his father told him that he had always used this method to make Ming Bei only see himself in her eyes. But he was wrong. He found out later that Murong Fan had lied to him. He beat Ming Bei and Ming Bei didn't like him. She even liked Li Xiaoyang because she disliked him. When Murong Chuiqing returned from Xiao City, he killed Murong Fan without hesitation. He lied to me, he said I would beat you. You will see me, he lied to me, I have killed him, he will never lie to me again. Murong Chuiqing stretched out his hand towards Lily. Eyes focused, come here, I won't hit you again. Look, I threw away the long whip. Lily was dumbfounded, Ming's mother was also speechless with her mouth wide open, Murong Xiang'er was stunned for a long time, and suddenly couldn't help screaming. Brother, are you crazy? They killed my mother. How can you still like this bitch Ming Lily? Shut up. If you keep arguing, I'll pull out your tongue. When Murong Chuiqing turned to look at Murong Xiang's child, his expression was not as focused as when he just looked at Lily. His expression was as cold as a poisonous snake. You are not allowed to call her name, you are not allowed to mention her. It was obvious that he was seriously injured at this moment. But when he drank, a murderous aura leaked out of him, as if Murong Xiang'er would jump up and kill him if he dared to say a word at the next moment. Seeing his elder brother's appearance, Murong Xiang'er's back went numb. Subconsciously his body fell back, his face pale. My mother died because of them, and you actually. You killed my father. Are you crazy? So what? Back then he could kill someone and take his wife, but now I kill him and get Ming Lily. What's wrong with that? Murong Chuiqing snorted coldly and raised the corners of her mouth. When Ming's mother heard this, she shivered violently. You. What do you mean? As soon as she opened her mouth, Murong Chuking didn't want to pay attention to her at all. Lily felt an inexplicable throbbing in her heart. She felt that the success or failure of the mission depended on this. Following the feeling in her heart, she couldn't help but ask. You mean, it's my father who was killed by Murong Fan? If I didn't kill him, how could your mother become a widow and marry him? If I didn't kill Li Yangzi, how could you become a widow and belong to me? Murong Chuking looked matter-of-fact. When Ming's mother heard this, she felt like the world was spinning. But Lily couldn't help laughing. She laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out. She turned around and stared at Ming's mother. Ming's face was ashen and her body was shaking like chaff. She looked like unable to accept this fact. She was so weak that she couldn't hold up her arms while sitting on the ground. She fell softly, but it was Li Zhaocheng behind him who supported her body with a long sword and helped her sit up. Impossible, you are lying. How could Murongfan kill my husband? It's impossible. He saved the lives of our mother and son. Ming's mother shook her head, unwilling to believe this fact, but she didn't know why. She felt vaguely that Murong Chuking did not lie to her, and Ming's mother became a little panicked. If her husband was really killed by Murongfan, and the main reason was just because Murongfan wanted to get her, then over the years, I have always thought that my dead father Ming had caused trouble for my mother and son, so I have hated him for many years, and because of this, I sometimes vented my anger on my two children. I was actually wrong? At that time, she hated Ming's father for causing trouble, not counting her own death, but also causing trouble to the mother and son. In the danger, Murongfan rushed to save the lives of mother and son, caring for her and her two children, and bringing them he came to provide strong protection, allowing her to live a stable and peaceful life, so that she no longer had the wandering life before. Because she had suffered the pain of being hunted by others, she especially cherished her subsequent life and did not allow anyone to destruction. Even though she didn't actually love Murongfan in her heart, Murongfan gave her a sense of security. Because she was afraid of losing this sense of security, she knew that her daughter was not having a happy life at Murong's house, but she kept pretending to turn a blind eye. She didn't want to be hunted anymore, she wanted to live. Ming's mother used to think that her thoughts were not wrong, she just wanted to live, but now Murong's words of favor seemed to give her a stick in front of her, leaving her mouth open and panting. Her heart was in great pain, but she couldn't cry. Murong Chuking didn't bother to look at her at all. If Ming's mother thought it was a lie, it was a lie. What she thought had nothing to do with him. His eyes fell on Lily, and he tried his best to get up and move towards her. Come here, I won't hit you anymore. No one will teach me to hit you anymore. Come here. He moved, and the blood and water stains under his body were mixed together, soaking the place where he sat. Lily stretched out her hand, but Lily just stared at him coldly. She really didn't expect that the reason behind Murong Chuking's action was because he liked Ming Lily. Even if he was instigated by Murongfan, the original owner he liked was actually what he really received was his whipping, and even now, Xiang Xiao has passed away, leaving ugly scars all over his body. This kind of result cannot be settled by just a word from Murong Chuiqing. The lost soul of the original owner cannot come back, and the damage he left cannot be wiped out just because Murongfan died. I don't like you. Murong favors you. Even if Lily doesn't like you, I won't go there. As soon as Lily said these words, the light in his eyes quickly dimmed. His expression suddenly became a little dangerous. He suddenly jumped up, and with lightning speed, he grabbed Lily's wrist with such force that it seemed like he wanted to break her wrist off. He exerted a force. After dragging, Lily stumbled towards him. Li Zhaocheng and others did not expect that Murong Chuiqing was injured like this. He actually had the ability to snatch Lily away in front of everyone. Li Yangzi was slumped on the chair at this time. The energy in his body was exhausted, causing him to fall into a drowsy sleep and not wake up. Lily originally held him in her arms. After being dragged away by Murong Chuking, Li Zhaoyang hurriedly stepped forward and helped him up. Murong Chuking. What do you want to do? Li Zhaocheng was furious and couldn't help but drink. Murong Chuking ignored him and pressed Lily to his chest with his backhand, his expression a little dangerous. Don't like me? Don't come over? I said, I can't come over for what I want. I will still get it myself. Don't worry, I really won't hit you again in the future. I have thrown away my whip. You believe me? He said. He begged again, you hit me, you killed me, you see, you left me with 2 wounds. I haven't let them recover yet. Are you unhappy? Can't vent your anger? You stab me with something again, I promise not to let them grow up again. He held the lily in one hand. He hurriedly tore off his clothes with one hand. The wound on his shoulder that had been pricked by Lily now had 2 broken hairpins left inside. The wound was often peeled off with force, and foreign objects were left inside, so for more than a month, the sword wounds left by Li Xiaoyang on his chest have all healed up. However, the 2 small wounds not only did not heal, but became more serious. They were swollen and white after being soaked in water, making people feel scalped at first sight. Feeling numb, Murong Chuiqing seemed to feel no pain. When he saw that Lily didn't respond, he grabbed her hand and pressed the wound again. He pressed the 2 severed white jade hairpins deeper into the wound. Blood came out, and Lily he only felt that he was surrounded by the smell of blood. Not only did he not show pain, but he showed a relaxed and happy look on his face. Look, if you fight back, how many times will I hit you and how many times will you hit me back? Don't be angry anymore. It's my fault that you left me. I shouldn't have married you. Be good and don't say anything to make me angry. I will try to control myself. Veins on his forehead jumped, his eyes narrowed, murderous intent flashed through his eyes, and his eyes turned faintly red again, staring at Li Yangzi. It was full of cold killing intent. At this moment, he was already trapped in a fight with such serious injuries, but when he saw it, Li Xiaoyang still became a little wary. Murong favors you. Lily looked at him calmly. He had gone crazy. When he heard Lily calling him, he turned his eyes back. There was only Lily's face in his eyes, and there was doubt in his eyes. His brows furrowed, as if he was a little confused, a look of uncertainty flashed across his face, and he stared at Lily closely, as if he was confirming something. Mingbei he is dead. She died before getting married. I am not her. She scares you to death. She just wants me to stay away from you. I will not leave with you. People like you deserve such retribution. Lily came close to his ear and whispered a few words quickly. She used her true power in her hand and slapped Murong Chuiqing on the chest. The wound he had originally received from Li Xiaoyang suddenly burst open, and blood splashed on Lily's head. He groaned, but it was as if he couldn't feel the pain in his chest. He just stared at Lily with a sinister expression. Instead of loosening his grip, he tightened his grip. What did you say? I said, Ming Lily is so scared of you. She doesn't want to see you, so she wants to stay away from you. Lily repeated it once. When he heard that Lily was afraid of herself, it made Murong Chuiqing even more crazy than when he heard that Lily hated him to death. She can't be afraid of me. She can't hide away. If she dares to hide, I die with her. It's a pity that he couldn't die with Lily in the end, not to mention that Lily had already died without even seeing the scum. Now Li Xiaocheng couldn't bear it when he saw that he dared to hold his daughter-in-law in front of him without fear. A sword pierced Murong Chuiqing's arm. When he was stunned, he tried to snatch Lily back. He still held on tightly, and Lily's wrists seemed to be broken by him. He couldn't help shouting under the severe pain. Didn't you say you wouldn't hurt me? These words sounded like thunder in Murong Chuiqing's ears. He subconsciously let go. When he came back to his senses and wanted to catch Lily again, Li Xiaocheng had already protected her behind him. Murong Chuiqing suddenly laughed. He originally wanted to. He died with Lily, but Lily was unwilling. If Ming Lily's whereabouts was not found, he would not be willing to let him die like this. He quickly glanced at the Li family, got up and plunged down the mountain. All this happened so fast in the midst of the lightning and flint, I could only see his body falling vertically from mid-air, falling into the water with a large splash, and then disappeared. I will come back. Before he fell into the water, he smiled a little weirdly and opened his mouth to say these words. Even Li Xiaocheng, seeing such a scene, was also made numb by this junior and speechless. Come. Fortunately, Murong Chuiqing disappeared. Although he said he would come back, he fell into the water and suffered such serious injuries. If he was rushed into the moat, it would be difficult to survive. How could he come back? While everyone was stunned, Ming's mother suddenly got up and snatched the Qinglian in Li Ziyang's hand. He was still immersed in the fact that his martial arts skills were not as good as Murong's favor now, and he was not as good as Li Yangzi. The long sword in his hand was killed by Ming's mother. He grabbed it, and when he reacted, Murong Xiang'er screamed. The gift that Uncle Guan sent to Li Zhaoyang in the past was to congratulate him on his wedding to Murong Xiang'er. At this time, Ming's mother took it in his hand. On the other hand, it failed to add luster to Murong Xiang'er's wedding, and instead cost her her life. When Ming's mother found out that her husband was really killed by Murong Fan, and that all the tragedies she thought she had in the first half of her life were caused by Murong Fan, she wished she could kill Murong Xiang'er. She used to think that the Murong family were her benefactors, but unexpectedly they turned out to be her enemies. She used to please Murong Xiang'er everywhere, so her daughter was alienated from her, and her son also died at the hands of Murong Xiang'er. The original source of all this was just her beauty that was favored by Murong Fan, and she wanted to avenge her son. Without Murong Fan's support, Murong Xiang'er was already very frightened. She didn't expect that Ming's mother would attack her. In the past, Ming's mother was used to being humiliated by her. Even if she slapped Ming's mother in public, she still had to swallow her anger. Such a cowardly woman, Murong Xiang'er never thought that one day she would stab her body with a long sword. When the long sword came out from her chest, Murong Xiang'er turned around and saw Ming's mother's face full of hatred. Face. Such an accident occurred in Zixiao City, and countless disciples were killed and injured. Fortunately, the elite disciples still stayed and sent people to change the river course on the mountain back to its original place. After experiencing this disaster, if Zixiao City wants to recover, it will take more than one day. It took 2 days to recover. Half a month later, the news came out that the entire Murong family was blood-bathed, and that Murong Fan had his eyes gouged out before his death. Righteous people in the world are speculating that it was the mysterious figure who was chasing Ming's father that day. Who would have guessed that it was Murong Chuiqing who killed him? Due to its remote location, Zixiao City received the news too late. Zixiao City was re-established. After half a year of nursing, Li Yangzi recovered. Not only did he regain some abilities, but his legs were also much better than before. Since killing Murong Xiang'er, Ming's mother disappeared, her son died, her husband died because of her, and her real daughter Ming Beihe disappeared. The peaceful life she thought she had before was actually only living in her imagination. Half a year later, the entire Tianshan sect was blood-bathed, leaving no trace of chickens or dogs. The main entrance of the Tianshan sect was poured with blood, and a row of small words was written on it: "Fortune-telling all day long will not predict the disaster of annihilation." It's a waste of fame, but it's useless to keep it. Tianshan, which is famous for its divination formations, has since lost its inheritance. When people in the world are wondering which immortal the Tianshan sect has offended, Lily knows in her heart that Murong Chuiqing is back. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 745. Murong Chuiqing went crazy. When he appeared again, he couldn't remember who he was. He once appeared to assassinate Li Yangzi and shouted Ming Lily's name. After the failure, he turned around and ran away. He appeared again a few years later. Her martial arts skills are higher than before. Lily is not afraid of encountering enemies, but when she encounters a crazy person like Murong Chuiqing, this mission also gives her a huge headache. When she returned to the starry sky, Li Yangzi went back ahead of her. This time she solved the mystery of Ming Beihe's life experience and revealed the truth about Murong Fan's murder of Ming's father. Ming's mother was deeply stimulated and was considered completed. The original owner had something on his mind, and the mission was accomplished. Li Yangzi had gone away from the pale and sick look he had during the mission, and had returned to his usual coldness and reserve. He originally had something to say to Lily, but when he thought of Yun Munan who had disappeared inexplicably, his eyes darkened again. After that, without Yuking, for him, he is incomplete. Even if Yun Munan will be affected, he will be the most affected in the end. He wants to find Yun Munan, and originally planned to accompany Lily to enter mission, but now it was obvious that he could no longer follow. Gender, female, variable. Name, Lily. Age, 21. Intelligence, 87, out of 100. Appearance, 91, out of 100. Physical strength, 77, 100 full points. Force, 71, out of 100 points. Spirit, 82, out of 100. Reputation, 35, out of 100 points. Skills, 9 Yang Manual, 9 Yin Manual, Heaven and Earth Gate Tao Te Ching, Southern Gu Technique, Star Body Training Technique. Specialties, Advanced Cooking Skills, Advanced Acting Skills, 5 Elements, and Bagua, slightly dabbled in. Charisma, 65, out of 100. Mark, Royal True Dragon Spirit. A few wisps of clear smoke from the exquisite Kiran sandalwood burner placed on the incense table were slowly spit out from Kiran's mouth. The entire palace was filled with the elegant scent of sandalwood. Several maids with neat buns standing on both sides of the hall with hands down. The window coffin was propped up, and the slow breeze blew inward along the window, causing the gauze on the ground to sway gently, and occasionally a corner was blown away by the wind, revealing half of the sleeping face on the side of the bed. The sun is shining brightly outside now, but the cicadas that were originally resting on the treetops have been caught by the palace servants. The surroundings are so quiet that the palace ladies are a little drowsy in the afternoon. The figure originally lying on the bed turned over. Because the movement was subtle, it did not attract the attention of the palace people. Lily opened her eyes, thinking that this time she suddenly entered the mission, and Li Yangzi hadn't come with him yet. Guessing that he might have encountered trouble in his last mission, she opened her mouth and sighed silently. This time she was dressed as a girl named Fu Beihe. Fu Beihe was born in a scholarly family. The founding emperor of the Zhou dynasty rewarded people based on their merits. Fu Beihe's great-grandfather had meritorious service for his suggestions. In addition, the Fu family was a well-known family in the previous dynasty. Therefore, after the founding emperor of the Yuan dynasty established Luoyang as the capital, he named the Fu family the Marquis of Changping. Hereditary, the founding emperor before his death. 3 ministers were appointed to protect the late emperor. Mr. Fu was the imperial master personally selected by Emperor Yuan for the late emperor at that time, and the Fu family was therefore unique. In addition to the Fu family, there is also the Lu family, which is as famous as the Fu family. Unlike the Fu family, which won the respect of Emperor Yuan for its literature, the Lu family gained glory for its military achievements. After the world was at peace, the old man of the Lu family was granted the title of Xiaoaha, commanding 100,000 troops to guard the border. When Emperor Yuan gave the order on his deathbed, the Lu family was also named Minister of Guming. Stay by Emperor Yuan's side. And the most powerful among the 3. It's the Yan family. On that day, the founding Yan family made great military exploits and provided the Zhou dynasty with a large amount of gold, silver, and jewelry as war preparation materials. It can be said that the reason why the Zhou dynasty is what it is today is inseparable from the Yan family's great efforts. When Emperor Yuan was alive, he once joked that he would divide the world equally with the Yan family, although this has become a joke after the establishment of the great Zhou dynasty. However, in the harem, the girls of the Yan family occupied a large number of positions. Even the late emperor was made the prince because of his bloodline, the Yan family was named the duke of the country, and the old master Yan was appointed as the 3 most important ministers. Head. The three families were entrusted by Emperor Yuan on his deathbed to assist the late emperor, but the Yan family was powerful. In the army, the Lu family only controlled 100,000 troops, but in the southwest, the Yan family controlled 400,000 troops and horses. Later, in the southwest, only the Yan family was even known. Without knowing who the royal surname is, the late emperor was like a puppet when he was alive. The power of the government was in the hands of the Duke of Yan. The queen in the harem was the daughter of the Yan family. 3 of the 4 concubines were related to the Yan family. Fu, seeing the strength of the Yan family, Lu Er's family began to hide their power and bide their time, not daring to compete with the Yan family. The late emperor tried to take back power countless times during his lifetime, but was unable to compete with the Yan family. I don't know if the Yan family was too powerful and made God jealous. After the emperor ascended the throne, the Yan family sent their daughters to the palace as usual. However, neither the queen nor the 3 concubines were pregnant. Instead, it was the Fu family and the Lu family who sent their daughters to the palace. The daughters who entered the palace became pregnant one after another, and all gave birth to a son. In order for the prince to succeed to the throne, the late emperor summoned the Fu and Lu families before his death, hoping to use their help to eradicate the Yan family, and promised that if anyone could help when the Zhou dynasty removed the Yan family, he would appoint any prince as his heir. For this promise, the Yan family became the common enemy of the Fu and Lu families. The 2 families used to fight openly and secretly, but now they have common interests and both sides have put aside their prejudices. Come. In order to express their sincerity, the 2 parties agreed to marry. The Lu family has many sons, and due to the premature death of the crown prince, except for the son who is still babbling, is currently waiting for the title of crown princess. The Fu family has many daughters, with a total of 7 girls of marriageable age. Even excluding the 2 who have already decided to get married, there are 2 suitable ones. Mr. Fu had 3 sons. The first son took over the throne, the second son went to study, and the younger son joined the army and led the troops. Only his wife and daughter were left to fulfill their filial piety for him in the capital, and Fu Beihe was Fu Beihe, the legitimate daughter left by the third master in the capital. She was 14 years old and had never been married because her father was away in Beijing. When the news came out that the Fu family was going to marry the Lu family, the daughters of the Fu family became a little excited. Although his wife died young, Prince Lu was handsome in appearance, gentle in posture, practiced martial arts at a young age, and tall in stature. He was really one of the best among men, not to mention the cleanliness around him. Over the years, in addition to serving in the same house, his wives and concubines were already considered a minority among the nobles. What girl doesn't want to have a child? Such a person naturally attracted the attention of several girls in the Fu family, and they all wanted to marry her. After all, being in an aristocratic family, the girls knew that if they could not marry Prince Lu now, once the new emperor came to power, a daughter from the Fu family would definitely enter the palace. Because of their equal status, the 2 princes now compete for the throne. The competition is very fierce. In addition to the positions of the principal concubine and the concubine, the 2 princes have countless concubines. The daughter of the Fu family is so noble. If she enters any of the houses of these 2 princes in the future, it is better to marry for Lu Shizi, instead of fighting for the wealth and honor that I don't know if I can achieve it in the future. It is better to focus on Lu Shizi, at least marry him, and then she can be a ready-made prince concubine, and wait until he inherits the position of Lord Marquis, which is also serious. A wife with a royal title is much more attractive than climbing the illusory Qingyun road. For this reason, the girls from the Fu family worked hard to marry into the Lu family. Even though they knew that the alliance between the Lu and Fu families was only temporary, the position of the crown princess was too attractive. For women at that time, getting married was like reincarnation for the second time. Now that they knew the way out was right in front of them, Naturally everyone tried their best to fight for it. Fu Beihe fell out with her cousins over this, and she used after resorting to various means. She originally thought that she was likely to marry Prince Lu, but as a result of the imperial decree, the person who married Prince Lu became Fu Bibai, the legitimate daughter of the eldest son of the Fu family who died young by his ex-wife, and except for a few concubines in addition to the daughter who was accompanied as a concubine, several legitimate daughters, including Fu Beihe, were sent to the two imperial palaces and became the prince's women. Among the many sisters, Fu Bibai has the most beautiful appearance. She was originally born to the crown prince's legitimate wife, but she had a difficult time giving birth to her. In the end, she was left with such a daughter. She inherited the beauty of the former crown prince's concubine and is the most beautiful in the Fu family. A beautiful girl, she has a pair of enchanting eyes. Not to mention men, even women will be intoxicated when they see such a beauty. The sisters never thought at first that the Fu family would marry her to the Lu family. After all, if such a beautiful woman is sent to the palace, it is conceivable that she will be favored by the emperor. Fu has not had the support of his own mother for 100 years, and she is so beautiful and charming that she is suitable to be sent to the palace. However, the old man of the Fu family finally married her into the Lu family in a serious manner, while Fu Beihe and others were sent to the palace. In the palace, several girls had subconsciously ignored Fu Bibai when they fought in the past, but when the news came out, they all became confused. The one with mother's support became an unknown woman in the prince's palace, while the one without mother's support was Feng. Feng Guangguang married into the Haofu and became the crown prince's wife. At that time, Fu Beihe became the wife of the eldest prince Lu Qi. In order to ascend the throne, the eldest prince had walked through Fu's mansion several times and accidentally saw Fu Beihe's face. From then on, he was astonished and could no longer hold it in his heart. For other women, after Fu Beihe entered his palace, he did not touch Fu Beihe. Instead, he often looked at her in a daze, and sometimes even called Fu Bibai's name through her. For a woman, this is simply a big deal. It was a shame, but the moment she was sent to the palace by her family, Fu Beihe knew that she was actually an abandoned child of the family. The Fu family purely regarded her as a bet. If Lu Qi was expected to ascend the throne, then she would be the most favored. Well, the Fu family may help her in the future, but if she is not favored, the Fu family will prepare another daughter to be sent to the palace. The Fu family didn't care how she was treated in Lu Qi's palace. Even if she was ignored by the prince, the bitterness could only be poured into her own belly in the end. Lu Qi was fascinated by Fu Beihe, and often stared at her with gloomy eyes, resenting that Fu Beihe was not her but the one who married Prince Lu. Since Fu Beihe entered the palace, he has never touched her once. Instead, he often asked her to dress up like Fu Banian, imitate her tone, look, and dress. He even got Fu Banian's handkerchief and often asked her to take it with her. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 746. Because he was obsessed with the beauty, Liang Qi was extremely fierce in the fight for the throne. In the end, after the death of the late emperor, he ascended the throne with the help of the Lu family. When the harem was ranked by seniority, Fu Beihe was only named a noble. As the legitimate daughter of the Fu family, his father made great contributions to the Zhou dynasty, but in the end he only made one noble person. The Fu family knew that she was not favored, so they sent a daughter to the palace again. This younger sister of the Fu family had a pair of hair that was somewhat similar to Fu Bibai. Although her facial features and beauty are not as good as Fu Bibai's, now that Fu Bibai has become the crown princess and has given birth to an heir with Lu Shizi, the emperor had known that he would not be able to get Fu Bian again, but could get a girl similar to her. Naturally regarded her as a treasure, the daughter of the Fu family was named a virtuous concubine as soon as she entered the palace, directly above Fu Beihe. She has been with the eldest prince for many years and still maintains her innocence. She just chose to enter the palace at the most inappropriate time. As a result, Liang Qi's love for Fu for hundreds of years caused him to fail to marry the other daughters of the Fu family. Lu Shize's resentment, not to mention the fact that the sisters of the Fu family were not on good terms when they were competing for the time to marry Lu Shize, this also made Liang Qi dislike Fu Beihe very much, thinking that she was too fond of Fu Beihe in the past. Harsh and fierce. If a person likes others, no matter how bad they are still perfect in his heart. If he does not like them, living or breathing will be wrong. Fu Beihe is not ugly. If she married into an ordinary family, she would have lived a prosperous and comfortable life based on her family background. However, she would die of old age in the palace and be despised by others. In less than 5 years, she has been the daughter of the Fu family. Time has become an outcast that everyone in the palace can step on. The virtuous concubine is favored, and no one dares to touch the emperor's darling. Many people attacked her, humiliated her, and transferred the resentment of her good concubine to her daughter named Fu because she was not favored. She was bullied everywhere, and even later became a pawn used by others to plot against the wise concubine. Fu Bibai, who was no match for her at that time, was extremely favored by the prince because of marrying him. After the marriage, the couple lived in love and harmony. She gave birth to a son who was given the imperial title because the emperor doted on her. Fu Beihe was born in the Fu family in 100 years, and her husband was the eldest son of the Lu family. She became the woman envied by everyone in the Zhou dynasty, but Fu Beihe was finally plotted against her, and she disappeared quietly. He died quietly in the palace. If it were just like this, Fu Beihe could only blame himself for his bad fate. At best, one might think that Fu Bibai is particularly lucky, but this is not the case. Fu Bibai's father, Crown Prince Fu, remarried Pan, the daughter of the Peking house, 2 years after the death of his former concubine. Her daughter Fu Banian regarded her as a thorn in her flesh. Fu Banian grew up frail under her care. When she was not 12 years old, she had a dispute with her sister. She fell into the water and died of the cold. When she came back to life, she had become a white-collar ghost from modern times. When she entered Fu Bibai's body, she used her various skills in the workplace to confront Pan, causing Pan to fight. She was so disgusted that when she was 16 years old, when many sisters were vying to marry Prince Lu, Pan took advantage of the situation and sent her to the palace, where she became the favorite of the eldest Prince Liang Qi. Wives and concubines use sex to do things, love and love. When he was young, Fu Bibai thought he was smart. He also felt that beauties were unlucky. When Liang Qi became Liang Qi's woman, although Liang Qi loved her like pearls, she was always cold and indifferent. She didn't bother competing with other women for favor, and the eldest prince had always been the one to please and coax her. As time went by, Liang Qi himself became the favored son of heaven, and as Liang Qi ascended the throne, there were many beauties in the world. Although Fu Bibai was beautiful, she would no longer be favored when she got tired of it, and she had an unpleasant temper. The emperor liked it, but in the end he was ignored by the emperor. When the emperor favored her, he held her up like a pearl. Once he fell from power, the palace had been a place of cannibalism since ancient times. She finally got tired of living. She was tired of this kind of disputes with other daughters. She was tired of it. The emperor liked the new and disliked the old, so he wanted to die. After his death, he was reborn and returned to the time when she first possessed Fu Bibai. She kept a low profile and bided her time. In order to change the fate of her previous life, she no longer had an affair with Pen because of her appearance. Everyone in the Fu family thought that she would serve the king if she entered the palace in the future, but Fu Bibai only wanted to be with someone and did not want to enter the palace. She pleased her grandparents and the old man of the Fu family, and finally attracted the pity of the two ancestors. After marrying when choosing Lu Shize, Fu Beihe, who was originally married to Lu Shizi in her previous life, was replaced by her. She robbed Fu Beihe of the life he should have had. Naturally, Fu Beihe's fate of entering the palace fell on Fu Beihe. The time-traveling girl was already luckier than others. She had one more lifetime of memories and decades more life experience than the ancients. Now she still has a chance to be reborn. After being reborn, she even robbed her of the marriage that originally belonged to her. Fu Beihe was really unwilling to accept it. Although she has no memory of her previous life, no relationship with Prince Lu as husband and wife, and she cannot say that she likes Prince Lu that much, but she is not willing to give in, and she works hard. Although they have innate advantages, she can't compare to others no matter what. Even if she couldn't marry Prince Lu, Fu Beihe was not bad herself. Why couldn't she get the emperor's love? Except for her appearance and luck, she was not as good as Fu Beihe. She really didn't think she was any worse than Fu Beihe. She was Fu's daughter. While enjoying the glory and wealth, she was originally willing to contribute to the family. But why did she? Both the Fu family's daughter also pleases the Fu family elders. How can the Fu family elders be so biased when arranging their worries for Fu Beihe? Even after discovering that she was not favored, he immediately treated her as an abandoned child. He knew that she was being bullied and plotted in the palace, but with the power of the Fu family, he was unwilling to support her. If the Fu family had only shown a little respect for her, her final result would have been so miserable. She did what she should do for the Fu family, but the Fu family gave up on her. She wanted to get the emperor's favor. Love proves that she is no worse than Fu Beihe. She wants the Fu family to take a good look. She, Fu Beihe, can stand up even without the Fu family. The original owner's wish cannot be fulfilled overnight, so it has been 2 or 3 days since Lily entered the mission. She has not done anything. On the contrary, like Fu Lily before, her daily life is not that big. The changes, except that she is no longer like the original owner, who is always determined to attract the attention of Emperor Liangqi. The late emperor died half a year ago, and the eldest prince Liangqi succeeded in seizing the throne and becoming emperor. The power of the government fell into the hands of the Yan family. Now the Fu and Lu families are fighting fiercely with the Yan family. At the beginning, the Fu family and the Lu family boarded the late emperor's ship at the same time, but in the end they failed to overthrow the Yan family. But this offended the Yan family, and the 3 families were in trouble. The Yan family started early and was truly powerful. Although the Fu family was quite famous in the previous dynasty. But some of them are just names, and they are still not as good as the Yan family. Even if they are united with the Lu family at this time, but their foundation is not as good as the Yan family, the 2 families can only barely compete with each other. In the 6 months since the emperor ascended the throne, he had spent most of his time in the harem because he had no way to intervene in the affairs of the state. Therefore, the current Zhou dynasty was experiencing fierce fighting between the former and the former. The harem was also turbulent. Fu Beihe has been in the palace for many years. At first, when Liangqi didn't get Fu Balian, he would come to her and occasionally look at her in a daze and let her pretend to be Fu Balian. However, since Liangqi ascended the throne as emperor half a year ago, after that, the Fu family sent Fu Balian into the palace 4 months later. In the past 2 months, Liangqi has never set foot in Fu Beihe's palace. If she hadn't been surnamed Fu, she would have been trampled to death in the palace by now. Liangqi should have forgotten her, or even he said that he had never remembered her name, and maybe he had never even seen what she looked like. The reason why he came to her in the past was simply because her surname was Fu, which was the same as Fu Beihe. This was also Fu Beihe, the place where I feel most unwilling to get the emperor's favor. Lily felt a little tired when she thought about this wish. But the original owner was arrogant and arrogant. When she died, the knot in her heart was not only unresolved, but tightened even tighter. She was unwilling to accept it. There is still a breath that has not been let go, even if Lily doesn't take it seriously. She doesn't think Liang Qi is a good match, but since the original owner has sacrificed his soul to fight for this reputation, she will naturally fulfill the original owner's wish. But she is not in a hurry to get the emperor's favor. Her current situation is very critical. Fu Bailian has been very popular with the emperor since entering the palace. The concubines in the palace hate her and gnash their teeth. Now all their attention is on her. Lily, there is still a short period of safety, but once these women find that they can't deal with Fu Bailian and set their sights on her, and then vent their anger on her, she will be in trouble. Lily couldn't help but think of this. He sighed again, turned over, and sat up. The two palace maids beside him were still leaning against the pillars. The scent of sandalwood in the room made people feel dizzy. Even though Lily had already sat up, the two palace maids had no intention of waking up. It shows the degree of neglect towards her. Lily lifted up the curtain. When the two palace men heard the movement, they turned their heads and took a look. When they saw Lily's frowning eyebrows, her red phoenix eyes stared at them with a cold look. Then he yawned. "Nobleman Fu, wake up." Fu Bei has been in the palace for a few years, but after Liang Qi came to power, he not only made her a little nobleman, but also didn't even give her a title. The people in the palace looked down on her and praised her, and Fu Bei waited on her. From the 2 steward aunts and the eunuch who were assigned to oversee 4 eldest maids, 8 second-class maids, and a bunch of rough girls when they first entered the palace, they have now been directly reduced to only a total of 4 people, and the rest of the staff, after discovering that she was not favored and had no children for many years. The emperor was now on the throne, and there were more and more beauties around her, and Fu Bei had little chance of being favored again at such an old age. Most people thought that she had no chance of getting ahead, so they all took advantage of each other and found another way out. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 747. The remaining 3 people had no choice but to stay because they couldn't find a high branch to climb for a while. However, although they stayed, their hearts were gone. These maids did not serve well. Originally, the palace, there are already enough examples of Fu Bei being deducted. When it is the turn of these palace people, the 3 of them will deduct some more, and even less things will fall into Fu Bei's hands. These 3 people have also been thinking about it recently. I have to find another way to go. I have been paying more and more attention to waiting recently. Lily has taken a nap now. The 2 people on duty have no intention of coming forward to wait on them. Instead, they are watching indifferently, as if they are not ready to send water. The act of waiting for her to get dressed. It wasn't until Lily stared at the 2 of them that she felt uncomfortable looking at the 2 palace maids. Then the taller palace maid curled her lips and reluctantly entered the inner hall, opened the cabinet and rummaged around. "Fu, what clothes will you wear today?" While smiling sarcastically, she grabbed a lot of clothes from the cabinet, weighed them in her hands and turned to stare at Lily. "The emperor loves light colors, which one should Mr. Fu wear?" There was contempt and disdain in her eyes. After grabbing for a long time, she picked out a lot of things and threw them onto the bed next to Lily. Her skirts, belts and skirts were all over the bed. Only then did she and the shorter palace maid look at each other. "Take a look. The slaves will go and fetch some hot water for the nobles first." After saying this, the 2 maids smiled and walked out holding hands. Lily has participated in many missions, and this is not the only time she entered the harem and became the emperor's concubine. She has also been left out in the cold, but this is the first time that she has been in such a bad situation as Fu Lily. She was a noble daughter of the Fu family, but her clothes were very shabby at the moment. There was no one to fold the pile of clothes for her, and they were stuffed into a mess in the cabinet. Traces of time can already be seen on many fabrics, and some places are already fading. Liang Qi likes plain clothes and dresses. That's because Fu Bibai likes to wear plain colors. Fu Bibai had a gorgeous appearance. After her rebirth that day, in order to hide her beauty from others, she tried to be as low-key as possible when dressing up. It is precisely because of this that all the noble ladies in the great Zhou dynasty dressed up in luxury. When serving the Lord, she seemed especially extraordinary. Some people's natural beauty will not be diminished by plain dressing, and this is the case for Fu Bibai. When Liang Qi saw her for the first time, the light-colored clothes not only did not damage her appearance, but made her more delicate and bright, making her look like a hibiscus. From then on, Fu Bibai became a grain of cinnabar in his heart. Can't be wiped away, not just because I love her appearance. I even fell in love with the way she dressed. After Liang Qi succeeded in ascending the throne, he did not like the luxurious and exquisite dressing of the women in the palace. Instead, he fell in love with Xiaojiabi's lovely beauty. When Fu Beihe entered the palace at that time, he was 14 or 15 years old and loved beauty. Really, how could a young girl appreciate Fu Bibai's lifeless dress if she hadn't experienced it over the years? She liked vivid colors and exquisite and outstanding objects, and many of her dowry items were mainly luxurious. That is why she has been in the palace for several years. But she has never been favored by Liang Qi. Until now, because she is not favored, the Fu family has no intention of standing up for her. Her dowry was still the same as before, but some of the beautiful cloths had faded long ago. It seems a bit desolate for no reason. No wonder this girl was unwilling to give up. Lily picked up a violet skirt, and after thinking about it, she chose a goose yellow light silk top. These things have been stored for many years and look very old. It is a pity that these things in the palace she has not been much favored over the years, and her status has been deducted to a large extent. Naturally, the new clothes that she should have been given for the 4 seasons will not be distributed to her as scheduled. After all, those eunuchs who flatter others and despise others are not afraid of her troubles, because without the emperor's favor and the support of the Fu family, Fu Beihe had no way to seek help even if she wanted to sue. Now even the 3 girls in the palace who have had an affair with her are probably more beautiful than her. After 2 days of being decadent in the palace, Lily decided that she should go out for a walk. Maybe she would meet Liang Qi in the imperial garden. After all, Liang Qi didn't need him to worry about the affairs in the palace now. He had nowhere else to go but to hang out in the harem. But, although Lily despises the emperor, since the original owner's wish is to be favored by the emperor, she must complete this mission. It seems that it is still difficult to get the emperor's favor. Just saying it is a little difficult does not mean that it is impossible to do it. Emperor Liang Qi is now focused on Fu Beihe. To make him fall in love with him suddenly is no more than a dream. But besides making him fall in love sincerely, there is another way, which is to make him have to love himself. Becoming an emperor is not something you just do as you please. Liang Qi also has his own wishes. He ascended the throne at a young age and originally had ambitions, but they were suppressed by the Yan family. He was obviously the king of a country, but now he can only have fun in the palace. He will definitely be very unwilling to do so. To regain power from the Yan family, in addition to relying on the power of his maternal ancestor Lu family, he also needs to win over courtiers and the powerful Fu family. Lily's current plan is to first win over the Fu family. Someone got on the line and used the power of the Fu family to attract the emperor's attention first. If Liang Qi wants to take power, he must please the Fu family. If the Fu family likes his daughter, even if he doesn't love himself, in order to gain the Fu family's allegiance, he will definitely act like he is doted on by the Fu family. Look, as for how to make him truly fall in love with her in the future, that will be a matter for the future. After all, the food must be eaten one bite at a time and the matter must be taken care of step by step. It is not easy to regain the favor of the Fu family. The Fu family has many daughters. Although Fu Beihe is a legitimate daughter, she was sent to the eldest prince by the family a few years ago, and she is already equivalent to a useless son. The most indispensable thing for the Fu family is beautiful girls. People like Mr. Fu have been in power for most of their lives, and their hearts have long been as cold as iron. Otherwise, when she and several other girls from the Fu family were so flattering to Mr. Fu and his wife, in the end, it's not like he still sent him out. If he wanted to get help from the Fu family, he had to start with the original owner's mother. Fu Beihe's mother, Mrs. Fu-san, gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters. Fu Beihe was Mrs. Fu-san's second daughter. Although Mrs. Fu-san valued her sons, Fu Beihe was still her biological flesh and blood. Although she didn't value her that much, compared to other people in the Fu family, Mrs. Fu was the easiest to establish a relationship with. Lily wanted to go to Fu Bailian's palace to find out the news. See if you can contact Mrs. Fu-san through her. She is just a noble now, she does not have a separate palace of her own, and lives in a palace with 2 other concubines who are not favored. She is going out now because she has no maids. Therefore, no one came to take care of it, and there was no need to report to anyone. The 2 palace maids who said they were going to fetch water for her just now ran away and disappeared. Lily changed her clothes and took the hairpin herself. She pulled her hair up, stroked her temples with her hands, then took the round fan and left the palace. Depending on your rank, you are not allowed to ride on a chariot in the palace, and it is June. The sun made the ground hot. She curled her toes and ran towards Fu Bailian's palace. Fu Bailian was very favored after entering the palace, and was assigned to live in the Qinjue Palace by Liangqi. This Qinjue Palace was the harem of the great Zhou dynasty. It is now the most gorgeous place in the city and is very easy to recognize. She found the right direction and ran over. Compared with the deserted appearance at the entrance of her palace, several girls and women in front of Qinjue Palace were very tightly guarded. When she saw Lily coming, a woman wearing satin pulled Lily away. Stopped. Where did you come from, you little bitch? You rush around without knowing the rules, and you are so reckless in front of the concubine Xian's palace. If you rush into a noble lady, I will carefully peel off your skin, the woman scolded, her eyes on Lily. Sweep up. Look at her old clothes. Although the material didn't look bad, it looked like an old satin gifted by some master. There was a bit of disdain on his face, and he became more and more impatient. I see you are ignorant this time. I won't argue with you. Go back. Someone will catch you and slap you. Auntie, please do me a favor. My surname is Fu. I am the sister of concubine Xian when she was in her parents' home. Lily knew that it was not easy to meet concubine Xian. She came here today just to let Fu Bailian know that she was there and to see if she was willing to see her. Help her because they both have the same surname, Fu. Although Lily thinks that such a chance is very slim, even if there is still a glimmer of hope, she doesn't want to let it go and make the mission go wrong. When the old lady heard Lily's words, she couldn't help but sneer, and her right thumb and index finger, which were caged in her sleeves, began to rub together. The people in this palace are really discerning. Once the Empress gains power, dogs and cats alike are coming forward to recognize their relatives. She was hinting to Beihe to get some benefits, but Fu Beihe's valuable dowry had already been spent when he entered the palace in the early years. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been such a difficult life later. Now that Lily couldn't get any money, she couldn't help but sigh when she saw the mother-in-law's actions. The woman's expression changed when she saw that she hadn't moved for a long time. Get away. The emperor is in the palace now and has no time to see you. If you don't leave, I will slap you with a big ear scraper. As she said this, she raised her hand. Lily gave her a cold look, and the mother-in-law's eye glared, biting her lip with a fierce look on her face. Beihe endured the coldness in her heart, and drooped her eyelids. The troublesome aunt will tell her when she is free, and tell her that Fu Beihe, the daughter of the third wife of the Fu family, I came here to find her and wanted to see her." After she said this, she turned around and left. The woman was still cursing, and you could hear her laughing with people from a distance. "Anyone dares to identify themselves as relatives of the Fu family, and I even said that I am Mrs. Fu. My biological sister. Ha ha ha." A group of girls all laughed together. Lily turned to look at the woman, and her eyes gradually narrowed. Lily had already known that she had failed today. She just wanted to try her luck. She didn't feel embarrassed if she failed at this moment. After all, if the task was just this easy, there was no way Li Yangzi would let her do it now. When she came over, she didn't get angry with the old lady, but she was thinking about some way to get close to Fu Balian. After walking a few steps, the sun was really bright. There was a white jade pavilion among the rose bushes in the distance. Maybe it was. At this time, because the sun was too bright in the afternoon, there were no other people around. The flowers were in bloom, almost covering the entire pavilion. I was sweating profusely from walking, and the clothes on my body were soaked with sweat. Sticking to her back, she entered the pavilion and prepared to rest. As soon as she entered, before she could sit down, she heard a high-pitched voice whispering from outside the flowers. Recently, the Emperor summoned Mr. Fu and Xiaoao in the study room to discuss it together. He said that he wanted to take away the military power of the Yan family first. Lily didn't expect that as soon as she arrived with her front legs, someone came from behind. She originally thought that if she met a noble person, she would have to salute, but she didn't expect to hear such a fatal thing. She looked around. The roses were blooming in large swaths, and the dense flowers were an excellent hiding place. As long as you hid in them and didn't move, others wouldn't be able to spot you. So I quickly twisted my skirt and was careful not to step on the branches and get into the flowers. The two people outside also walked towards this direction, their footsteps as light as cats. Lily endured the stinging pain when the rose branches scraped her face and body, and hid in the middle. She was deeply afraid that she wouldn't be able to survive the visitor if he stood for too long, so she crouched down. She didn't care about the Yan family and the Fu family and the Lu family seizing power. These had nothing to do with her. She just wanted to get the power for the original owner. The emperor's favorite, so he didn't want to hear the secrets in the palace, and he was not curious about the identity of the visitor, so he quietly lowered his head and stared at the solace of his shoes. The soft voice was still talking about Liang Qi summoning the Fu family and Liu's intention to overthrow the Yan family. The other person didn't make a sound. Lily only felt that a line of sight seemed to be looking towards her hiding place. She became more and more careful. The places where she was cut by branches and leaves felt painful and itchy after being soaked in sweat, but she could bear it. Motionless, and did not reach out to grab it. In the drawer of the emperor's study, there is also a portrait. In addition, the emperor is very precious to a silk handkerchief. The adopted son of the slave faction touched the handkerchief a few days ago. He was beaten by the emperor's order and is still unable to get out of bed. The handkerchief was worn by the prince. Guess what's embroidered on it? When the soft voice said this, he paused, as if he was afraid of being discovered, and seemed to look around. After a while, he lowered his voice. It has the word 100 years written on it. It's a coincidence that it was 2 months ago. After the emperor ascended the throne, the wife of the heir apparent of the Lu family was given a royal title. If I remember correctly, it was written about Fu's century. I know it well. The person who had been silent finally spoke. His voice was low and a little cold, and the soft voice responded quietly. The man with the cold and low voice listened to him for a few more words and then sent him away. After a while, there was a sound of footsteps. Lily stayed quietly among the roses and did not leave. There was no movement outside. She did not dare to look out. She did not know how long it had been. Her legs were numb and cold from squatting. There was a faint tingling pain in the soles of her feet, and her body felt extremely uncomfortable. Once a small injury was soaked with sweat, ordinary people would inevitably want to scratch it twice, but she was able to endure it without saying a word. Although she didn't deliberately listen to what she just said, Lily knew that it was a huge secret. If she went out and was discovered by someone now, she would probably be silenced. Although Li Yangzi was here now, even if she failed this mission, he may not necessarily die, but it would be too incompetent to lose his life just after entering the mission before he could do anything. On a June day, the scorching sun was shining on the child's face just now. The next moment, the sun hid behind the clouds. The weather suddenly became gloomy. The wind rustled the rose bushes, and it didn't take long. The raindrops began to fall, and Lily almost lost consciousness in her lower body, but the cold male voice rang out, "I have been squatting for a long time, but I am really patient." Sure enough, he didn't leave. Lily's brows suddenly wrinkled. When she just felt that she was being looked at, she had a premonition that something was going to happen. Now she was right. She shouldn't have walked into this pavilion today. When she met these two people, she just went out. It's not like she came in without walking. Now she was discovered hiding among the flowers. She didn't step on the branches, and she tried her best to adjust her breathing so as not to be messy. People outside may not have really discovered her. They may be deceiving her. Lily didn't move, just hoping that the person really didn't notice her. At most, she could just say a few words and leave quickly when no one was around. She stayed for a while, but the cold male voice laughed softly, and the voice sounded like a piano. It looked like a butterfly was stationed on the string, and when its wings flapped, it caused the string to tremble slightly. The voice was inexplicably pleasant and magnetic, but the words that came out of his mouth were sinister. "If you don't come out again, you will never come out again." He laughed twice, his tone was calm, and his murderous intention was not obvious, but it made Lily feel a sense of crisis inexplicably, and she began to feel a little embarrassed. She couldn't get any favors by going out. If she didn't go out, she had a hunch that what the person outside said was not teasing her. If that person really found out about her, and she stayed and refused to go out, maybe she would do it today. Die here. Various thoughts flashed through Lily's mind quickly. Before she could make up her mind, the rose bush above her head was suddenly cut open, and a large piece of the flower bush was neatly cut down. Fortunately, she was squatting, otherwise this would have happened. Her head might have been swept off. The rain-stained flowers were swept away, water droplets splashed all over her body, and the petals shook down one after another. A young man wearing a dark coat with red bottom and black edges was now urged and was sheathing his long sword in a slow and orderly manner. The sound was harsh and unpleasant, making people's skin crawl. He lowered his head and stared at the embarrassed beauty squatting under the flower rain, and his eyes reflected Lily squatted on the ground, looking at Lily whose head was covered with broken leaves and petals from rainwater. There was a gentle smile on the corner of her mouth, but her eyes were as cold as the 12th lunar month in winter. She couldn't hide anymore. They knew where she was, and they weren't trying to deceive her. Lily sighed, and then turned her head. It was a young man in his late 20s, with thick eyebrows that slanted into his temples. With a face like a crown jewel, he looked at her and smiled. When he saw Lily turning her head, he suddenly stretched out a hand to Lily. "Come." His hands are clean and slender. Except for the thin calluses between the knuckles, it can be seen that they are the palms of a pampered young man. The thin calluses are either used with a pen or left over from martial arts training. It can be seen that he has just struck the rose bushes with a sword. If he is leveled, it can be guessed that his martial arts is not weak. Lily still wants to escape after she dies. If she meets a martial arts practitioner, she will never be able to escape from his grasp. Instead, she may provoke him. Angry. Since she couldn't run away and didn't hide, she rubbed her legs and grinned, "My legs are numb, please wait a moment." She was not afraid and smiled calmly. When the handsome young man heard this, the smile lines at the corners of his mouth became a little deeper. His hands suddenly reached out to grab Lily's arm and pulled her up at once. He can walk in the palace, and the eunuch was so respectful to him just now, and he can also wear weapons and swords. Looking at his dress, a young man dares to walk in the emperor's harem. He is so arrogant. Except for the Yan family, Lily really can't think of it. Who else is coming? Thinking of the 3 words master that the eunuch called him just now, the name of Yan Su, the eldest son of the Yan family, came to Lily's mind. The Yan family was powerful. Before the late emperor succeeded to the throne, the Duke of Yan was appointed by Emperor Yuan as the first of the 3 ministers to take care of life. After the death of the late emperor, the Duke of Yan gradually placed official affairs in the Yan mansion to handle. The entire Zhou dynasty in the later period, many people only knew about the palace of Yan state but did not know where the emperor's palace was. It can be imagined that the power of the Yan family was great. However, the Yan family did not know whether it was because of the jealousy of heaven because of its great power. The Yan family did not have many heirs. The duke had only Yan Su. When his son was 15 years old, he wrote a letter asking for the title of crown prince. Because of his status, the crown prince of Yan had been assassinated since he was a child. Therefore, under the pressure of the Duke of Yan, the late emperor, he was given the privilege of walking around the palace with weapons. At this moment, I didn't expect that I would meet such a person just because I went into the pavilion to rest. He smiled gently and kindly, but the smile did not enter his eyes at all. His eyes were as delicate as glass, but they were cold, as if they could not see emotions, which made Lily feel a little embarrassed. This slave was just passing by here accidentally, and did not eavesdrop on the conversation between the master and the father-in-law. Please forgive me, Yan Su smiled, lowered his head to look at her, and still held her arms tightly with both hands. Reserved and calm, as if he didn't have the slightest murderous intention, but Lily thought of the sword that Leng Hui had just struck. If she hadn't squatted down smartly earlier, she might have moved her head by now. I don't know why, she had a hunch that when facing such a man, it would be better to play tricks with him than to talk to him honestly. This man seemed easy to talk to, but in fact there was no emotion in his eyes. She just hoped that when she had the chance to talk, she would talk to him honestly. Maybe you can escape with your life. If he really couldn't escape, the mission would have to fail this time. Although he was a little unwilling to do so, it was up to the people to make the plan, and the success was really up to God. Lily frowned. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 748. In fact, the money Fen Lily earns from her part-time job is enough to support herself, but because Fen Liang is there, she seems to be very poor. Fen Liang is not in good health and has to go to the hospital at least 4 or 5 times a month. I have been suffering from colds, and ailments all the time, and I have to go to the hospital for $200 to $300 a month. Even if Fen Lily tries her best to save money, it is not enough. But Lily is not ready to take care of Fen Liang anymore at this moment, and naturally she is not ready either. Work as hard as Fen Lily before. She didn't want to take good care of Fen Liang's body, lest the practitioner from another world take advantage of her in the future. She patted her butt and stood up. There were several frightening bruises on her thighs that made Lily frown. It was not easy to deal with Yuan Yelan. After all, when the status of the two of them was not equal, it was difficult to get Yuan Yelan to stop. It is not easy to bully yourself again, but what is even more difficult is Fen Liang. The immortal cultivator is not a fool, he kills without blinking an eye, and he keeps saying that the immortal cultivator must abandon his emotions and become ruthless, so he kills without blinking an eye, except for treating his own woman a little bit. In addition to being humane, he uses brutal methods to deal with other people. But what makes Lily feel comforted is that it was mentioned in the plot that in this era, due to the thin spiritual energy, Feng Liang was actually very slow to cultivate immortality after traveling through time. If it weren't for his powerful soul, the original owner Feng Liang would be a fool. For this reason, he took over this body so easily that he had more than half of his strength left to transform the body. He reached the so-called early stage of chi refining and possessed some simple spells, which looked particularly amazing. In fact, although these spells look fresh and have some magical powers. But when it comes to strength, it doesn't necessarily mean how strong he is. Even after he has perfected his spells, Feng Liang can only injure people with some wind blades. He can't even kill people. It's just that his luck is not that good. He met women who were beneficial to him one after another. Using the resources of these women, he made more and more money, and finally achieved his own career. Lily thought about it in her mind. This time she was not suitable for practicing advanced martial arts. She planned to take her time with the Nine Yang Manual. She could first practice the Nine Yin Manual and the Tao Te Ching together. Although she didn't know whether Feng Liang's situation was considered a ghost borrowing the body. Resurrection, but I hope it can have some effect on him, as long as it prevents him from practicing magic in the first place, and delays him for a few more years, until he can practice martial arts without fear of him. At noon, the original owner had to go home to cook for Feng Liang and then rush back to class. At this moment, Lily was also planning to go back and take a bath to fill her stomach. When he returned to Feng's house, the house was deserted. Li Yang was tied up in the living room. When he heard Lily coming back, he grinned at her and said with a silly look, "Hey, at this age, he actually can't speak yet." A pair of eyes looked unusually clear and distinct in black and white, and Lily couldn't help but be stunned. His eyes were as clean as a baby's, and his face was fair and handsome, but unfortunately he was a little silly. Hungry, hungry, hungry. Feng Liang struggled twice. In the past, because he was too stupid and didn't even know some basic safety knowledge, Feng Lily was afraid that he would hurt herself, so she often didn't dare to let him go. Stay alone in the house. When he went out, he tied him up at home. In order to prevent Feng Liang from hurting herself one day, this behavior became one of the excuses for the time traveler to be cold to her in the future. Because Feng Liang had no memory, the time traveler thought that Lily was abusing her original body. He wanted to avenge him, so he was very cold and mean to Lily. Now I saw that silly face. Although she knew she shouldn't vent her anger on an adult who was as big as a baby, Lily still couldn't help but feel a little bored and felt some sympathy for the original owner. There was a stink in the room. Feng Liang's pants were wet. He must have defecated inside. Every time he struggled, the stink came out. As soon as Lily closed the door, her brows suddenly stood up. After untying the rope that bound him, Feng Liang stood up happily. The pants were still pressed tightly against his body, and a big puddle was wet on the wooden chair. "Go to the bathroom," Lily ordered with a cold face. Feng Liang stared at her with big eyes, as if he didn't understand what she was saying. In the past, Feng Lily would never bear to see her brother's eyes like this, but Lily is different. After experiencing so many missions, she knows that even the most unintelligent beast, as long as he is taught a fixed behavior pattern, he will be able to behave in a certain way in the future. Feng Lily would also do this. Feng Lily had spoiled her eldest brother too well in the past, but now Lily didn't want to take care of her eldest brother like she did, so she pointed in the direction of the toilet and said it again. "Go to the toilet." Huh? Feng Liang glanced at Lily with some confusion, and then started to cry again, "Hungry, hungry." Lily looked around without saying anything. When she saw a shovel, she took the shovel and slapped it on Feng Liang's leg. Feng Liang, who had never been beaten before, was frightened and cried. He became more fierce. He originally wanted to run, but because he had been tied up all morning, his legs had no strength at all. After being beaten by Lily and lying on the ground, he cried until his eyes were red. Finally, he finally understood what Lily was doing. "I mean, I went to the toilet shivering." "Take off your pants." After just a while, Lily was already out of breath from exhaustion. She didn't know how Lily persisted in the past. Facing an adult man who couldn't even take care of himself, Lily didn't know how to persist in the past. She had suffered so much, and it was precisely because of this that Liang's indifference to her after time travel made her feel particularly sad, as if the sky had fallen. After 2 more convulsions, he cried and took off his pants. Sure enough, he became incontinent on the chair. Lily resisted the nausea and asked him to squat in front of the toilet to wash his body, and at the same time asked him to rub his pants too. Liang cried so hard that his nose and tears flowed, and now he looked at Lily's eyes with a little fear. After cleaning up everything, Lily found his pants again and asked him to put them on, and told him to sit on the chair obediently and not move. She also took a quick bath. She just went into the kitchen to prepare the meal. When she brought it out, she saw the wind. Li Yang was incontinent while sitting on the chair again. She took a deep breath and asked Liang to go into the toilet again and wash her pants. I don't know if it was because Lily had taught him just now, but he obediently lowered his head and went into the toilet to wash his pants, and then timidly changed into clean clothes and came out. "I have to go to the toilet from now on, and wash my pants after I wet myself. When I'm not at home, except for going to the toilet, I can't go anywhere, and I can't touch anything. I can only sit on a chair." Lily is not ready to be like the original owner again. Although she tied him up as a helpless act to care about him, it did not help his condition. Now that she has a brother like the original owner, Lily has now taken over the body of the original owner. What should she do? Things should naturally be done. Liang looked at the chopsticks she raised and nodded timidly. After dinner, Lily told him to sit on the chair and not move. It took him a long time to tell him what going to the toilet meant. Although Liang is stupid, if you teach him something repeatedly, even if he doesn't understand what it means, he will actually do it. Lily is deeply afraid that he won't know it yet, so she deliberately tests it on him again. "I went to the toilet and saw that he looked stupid. But at least I learned this," and I breathed a sigh of relief. In the afternoon, Liang taught Liang at home. Lily didn't even go to school. The Feng family was extremely poor. Except for the house left by the Feng family's parents, they had no other property. The name of this house was Liang. Although Bei was stupid because of his young age, he didn't even have his own ID card. Naturally, it is impossible to own real estate. And the immortal cultivator from another world also started his journey of making a fortune by selling the Feng family house. Lily was not going to give the money from selling the house to the time traveler. She was going to sell the house first. Although the Feng family brothers and sisters live in poverty in the capital, this house is worth nearly 1 million. Although the area is not large, the location is not too bad either. In addition, I have heard several rumors that this area is going to be developed, so the housing prices here are not bad. In the past, Lily wanted to keep some roots, but she was afraid that her brother would lose a foothold in the future, so she held on to her own strength. He refused to sell the house, and thought that if he couldn't work anymore, he would use this house to replace his brother with someone who could take care of him. Lily rested for a day, and went directly to the agency with the real estate certificate the next day. Because the house here was to be developed, almost no one was willing to sell it at this time. In addition, the price Lily wanted was not much, so a buyer soon came to the door. After negotiating the full payment of 900,000, the transfer took only 3 days to complete. The buyer did not need to live in this house. Seeing that Bei was very happy to sell the house and the price was cheap, it was agreed that the 2 brothers and sisters would live in the house before the house was demolished. Lily was naturally happy to have a sum of money and save the cost of renting a house. Moreover, with this 900,000 yuan, she would no longer have to work as hard as the original owner, nor would she have to pick up trash in school, which the original owner hated the most. The reason why she was wrongly accused of stealing money and no one said anything good for her after it happened was not only because of her poor grades, but also because it was Yuan Yelan who disliked her and she was poor. Although poverty is not a crime, in this era, people still despise her, as if because she was poor, someone in the class stole money, and they all thought it was her because she needed the money. After settling things at home, Lily returned to school. Compared with the original owner who was afraid of school but was unwilling to do so, Lily could understand that feeling from the remaining feelings in her body, but Lily was not afraid. Although she was not the smartest, but with the improvement of her IQ and the fact that she had attended high school in the past, as long as she worked harder in high school, she would not be able to win back her studies. As long as she was given 2 months, she was no longer anxious now. When she needed money, she concentrated on studying, and it was not impossible for her to improve her grades. As soon as Lily came to school, she went to the teacher's office first. She didn't come to class for several days in a row. As she expected, no one in the school noticed that she didn't come. When Lily came to the office, the teacher saw when he reached her, his face suddenly darkened, and he said with some boredom, "The bell is about to ring, why are you still here and not going into the classroom? You poor students are like this, dragging everyone down like pests' legs. If you are not good at studying, then don't come to school. If you don't have money, why come to study? Just go and work. School is a place for studying, not a place for you to pick up trash. It's embarrassing." This teacher is the head teacher of Lily's class, a middle-aged woman named Huang. She has been teaching for many years, and I heard that her husband was serving on the education committee and had a very strong connection with her, so she even forced Feng Lily to die. She wasn't afraid at all. She didn't like Lily in the first place, and she wanted to please the little princess of the original family, so her expression was naturally even colder. After snorting in disgust, he waved his hand and asked Lily to leave. Lily stood still, and Teacher Wang's face became a little ugly. He sneered and raised his head, and when he was about to speak, Lily asked her coldly, "Didn't the teacher see the scars on my body? I was beaten by several female classmates in the class. If the teacher doesn't help me get justice, I will go to the TV station and let people see the injuries on my body. I'm afraid the teacher will have 10 mouths to explain it, right?" Teacher Huang didn't expect that the usually timid student would learn to threaten her now, and she frowned. She stared at Lily, and sure enough, she found the scars around her eyes and mouth, especially the eye sockets that had not yet dissipated. Looks yellow and green. It was very scary. Although she knew that the classmates in the class did not like Feng Lily, because Feng Lily would not complain, and she had no backing, Teacher Huang naturally pretended not to know, but she did not expect that this person always looked like the student who looked like a gourd with his mouth cut off unexpectedly learned to complain without complaining, and his words even contained the intention of threatening her. Teacher Wang's face became a little ugly. "What do you mean? Is there any evidence that someone else hit you?" Lily took out a brand new smartphone and waved it in front of Teacher Huang. "Teacher, look at it. I have already recorded it. I don't want much. It's okay if those classmates don't want to apologize to me, but this is not the first time I have been bullied by them, so I asked them to compensate me. I have already taken photos. Some of them are already at home. These are evidence. Does the teacher want to see them?" She actually bought the mobile phone after she sold her house and had money, but Teacher Huang didn't know that. When she saw Lily taking out the mobile phone, she subconsciously asked, "Where did you get the mobile phone? Where did you get the money? Yes. Wasn't it stolen? I came to school to learn reading, not to steal money." What the teacher said was so funny. Did the teacher teach me to steal money? Lily couldn't help laughing. She didn't explain the origin of her mobile phone. This sentence made Teacher Wang's face turn green, and then he said again, I have always been bullied by my classmates, and I don't want to bear it anymore. I am an orphan and have no choice but to come to the teacher to complain. I ask those classmates who have beaten me, each person will compensate me 5,000 yuan, which is not a high request, otherwise I will ask the teacher to send me to the hospital for a full body examination to ensure that there is nothing wrong with my body. People say that those who are barefoot are not afraid of those who wear shoes. In the past, although the head teacher looked down on Feng Lily, now that Lily is shameless, she has no choice. Most of the people who study in this school, especially those in her class, have some background, and many of the children's families are well known, so there is no psychological pressure when bullying Feng Lily, a child of ordinary background, but Feng Lily used to forget about being timid. Now I don't know what kind of medicine she took, but she dared to ask for compensation. If she wanted to make a fuss, many people would not dare to make a fuss because they cared about their face. Naturally, Teacher Huang did not dare to make fun of her own reputation, so in her heart she felt Lily felt more and more bored, but said, You go back to the classroom first. I will discuss it with the parents of these students and talk to you later. In fact, as long as the original owner is shameless, even if the children of this age are a little mischievous, they are not all desperados, and they will not force the original owner to die from the beginning. Lily resisted now, and the head teacher felt frightened. After agreeing to her request, he allowed her to go back to the classroom. When the students in the classroom saw Lily coming in, many of them whistled, and after exchanging malicious looks, everyone laughed. Lily didn't have a desk mate because no one wanted to sit with a girl like her who picked up trash. Because of this, the class teacher simply arranged her next to the trash can in the corner of the classroom and laughed at her because she liked it so much. Trash fulfilled her wish. At that time, because of the sarcastic words of the head teacher, the original owner could not hold her head up for a long time. Lily didn't take it seriously at this time. She walked towards her lonely position, and a girl sitting in the row in front of her turned her head with a smile. Feng Lily, where have you been these past 2 days? Do you know that we have missed you? We haven't seen you. There is one less garbage picker in the classroom. No one has picked up the things Yelan threw, she said. As soon as the words were spoken, everyone burst into laughter. Yuan Yelan, who was sitting in the middle of the classroom, also turned around and smiled. One of her white wrists supported her chin. Even though she was several meters away, Lily could still see her smooth and jade-like face. As well as those jade-like nails, he looked like a pampered child. There was a stench coming from her desk. Last time, because she left at noon and did not come to class, her things were not taken away. At this moment, the lock on the desk was picked open, and it was conceivable that the contents inside could not be saved. Lily smiled slightly, lowered her head, and pulled the desk open. A stack of books was now covered in a layer of disgusting stuff, and the smell came from there. The girl sitting in front was still staring at her with a sarcastic smile on her face. Lily vaguely remembered that this was one of the girls who had beaten her last time, and she was usually the one who pleased Yuan Yelan the most. She glanced into the trash can next to her. Seeing that there were used plastic bags thrown by others, she picked them up. The girl in front of her smiled like a crescent moon. Look, the captain of the poop picking team is here again. He started working as soon as he arrived. Brothers and sisters, let's give her some benefits quickly. The girl finished speaking. People in the classroom laughed. Someone took out the scraps that had been prepared and was about to throw them at Lily. Lily quickly took out the book and covered the face of the girl in front of her. Past. Ah! A piercing scream rang out. The girl seemed to be going crazy and reached out to take away the thing covering her face. Her originally delicate and white face was covered with a layer of paste and was already a little dry. The animal pooped, and now it couldn't open its eyes. It looked very embarrassed. It opened its mouth and retched twice. Everyone saw this scene. Everyone was stunned. Lily smashed the object in her hand into the girl's face. Then he smiled contemptuously, "Don't fool me with this garbage in the future. I will pick up your garbage too." She seemed to have changed. The group of boys and girls were all stunned, and the movements of their hands stopped. No sound came out of her mouth, and for a while the only sounds in the classroom were the screams and cries of the girl with excrement covering her face. After a while, someone looked outside and shouted, "Teacher Huang is here." When the girl heard this, she wiped her face with her hands, looked at her jade-like little hands, turned her head and glanced at Lily bitterly, then suddenly opened her mouth and ran away crying with a loud "Wow! Teacher, Fen Lily is bullying someone." Someone stood up and made a small report first, pointed at Lily, and told her what had just happened. The head teacher's brows suddenly furrowed. He looked at Lily as if he was seeing a cancer, with a look of boredom on his face. "Fen Lily, can you calm down a little? If people like you don't want to study, get out of the classroom." The middle-aged woman's expression was very stern. When everyone thought that Lily must not be able to bear such a tone, she seemed not to hear it, sat down again, and seemed to be surprised. "General, oh, the 500 yuan I put in the classroom is missing. Someone stole it from me." Hearing that she had lost her money, everyone couldn't help laughing. A girl who usually followed Yuan Yelan said sarcastically, "Are you rich too? You are just as poor as you." The class teacher couldn't help but want to laugh. Lily glanced at the girl who was talking and said with a hint, "I really don't have much money now, but I will have money soon. Classmate Wang, I remember you beat me, but you haven't found it yet. Are you paying for the medical expenses?" "Won't I get money once you pay?" Her confident words stunned the girl who spoke. Yuan Yelan, who was sitting and watching the fun, frowned and took a handful of food from her drawer. He pulled out his bag, took out a wallet from it and then took out a wad of money. "Take it, consider it as compensation." The stack of money seemed to be nearly 1,000 yuan. Even most of the classmates in the class came from a rich background, but when they saw that Yuan Yelan would give money to Lily, they all felt a little sad. "Ms Yuan, you dare to ask for the money, but it's up to you, are you worthy of it?" Lily ignored it and went up to take the money. She counted the money as if she was deliberately disgusting Yuan Yelan. The arrogant girl was so angry that her brows stood up, and then she put the money in her bag and turned back to her seat. After Lily's shameless behavior, many people in the class had a worse impression of her, but Lily didn't care at all. Anyway, these people had never liked her, and she didn't need others to like her, so she ignored all these people's gazes. I don't know if it was because of her previous risk-taking performance, but the head teacher was also afraid of causing trouble, so he called her to the office after school. After personally counting 2,000 yuan and giving it to her, he said with an impatient look, "Fen Lily, don't think that the lion will ask for tens of thousands. That is impossible. Since Yelan gave you 1,000 yuan today, I will give you another 2,000 yuan to heal your injury. Pretend this never happened." "But teacher, my books were contaminated by my classmates. My desk is also dirty. Since the teacher only gave me 2,000 yuan, you have to take care of these things for me, right?" Lily shook her feet, looking like she was sitting still. The look on his face made the head teacher's expression even more ugly, and he turned his face away. "You don't have to worry about these. I will prepare new school bags and stationery for you. It's just that picking up garbage will have a bad impact. If you continue to do this, I will apply to the school to expel you from school." Today, teacher Huang suffered a big loss. Lily also knew that this woman had reached the edge of endurance. It was best to stop things in moderation. She came to vent her anger and gain reputation for the original owner. She did not want the original owner to be expelled from school and have a worse reputation, so she agreed. A sound. I accepted the offer and walked out with the money. When returning home after buying groceries, Feng Liang at home was still obediently sitting in the room with his hands on his lap. Lily has done well in training him in the past 2 days. As the old saying goes, the more pigs teach, the more they learn. Even if Feng Liang is dumber than ordinary people, he is still a human being, and he will understand after being taught a few times. After Lily checked that he hadn't wet his pants, it was rare to show him a smile. Patting his head, "Be good," as she said this, she took out the lollipop she bought when she went to the supermarket from her pocket, peeled off the candy wrapper and stuffed it into Feng Liang's mouth. She was still stern just now. A person with one face. It didn't take long for him to grin. "I have been with Feng Liang for a few days, although this person is a bit stupid. He had caused a lot of trouble to the original owner before, but that was actually not what he wanted. He was just sick." Lily didn't like him at first, but after getting along with him for a few days, she started to sympathize with him. "Come." Seeing the satisfied look on his face while eating the lollipop, she sighed and asked Feng Liang to sit obediently and not drool on his collar, then went inside to cook. When she came to this world, she definitely wanted to practice martial arts and Taoism in order to fight against the time travelers. But in addition to attacking herself, Lily also wanted to attack Feng Liang. Now she has a lot of money. To be honest, even if Feng Liang continues to be a fool like this all his life, as long as she has some capital, she can start any small business in the future and get a job after graduation. But it is not impossible to support him, but the prerequisite for such a life is it was him who didn't want to be transported through time. Lily sighed, and suddenly something came to mind. In the Tao Te Ching of the Heaven and Earth sect, in addition to the chapter on mental formulas, there is also a chapter on dealing with demons and ghosts. In modern terms, the practitioner is called time travel, but in a certain aspect, is he actually also a ghost? A kind of borrowing one's body to return yang? Although she doesn't know how to cultivate immortality, she does know how to control ghost possession and how to deal with these evil spirits. No matter whether it works or not, she will always give it a try. In the next few days, Lily studied hard during the day, and began to practice Taoism when she returned home at night. She had plenty of money now, and buying talisman paper and cinnabar was not a problem at all. Because there was no normal person at home except for her. Because of people, Feng Liang can be dismissed easily by her, so it can be said that no one can stop her from practicing Taoism. In this way, within 1 or 2 months, the talisman drawn by Lily has some spiritual power. It's fluttering. Not knowing when the time traveler would come over, Lily calculated that the plot should start in the second semester of the original owner's sophomore year of high school, which was still more than half a year away. At this time, the first semester of the sophomore year of high school had just started less than 3 months ago, and there was still enough time, so Lily did not miss out on the 9 Yang manual, the 9 Yin manual and the Gu technique. The houses here are old residential areas, many residents have moved out, and the environment is not like many developed areas. You can still hear the chirping of insects in remote corners of the buildings at night, especially since it is summer. There are plenty of snakes, insects, rats and ants, so Lily still sneaks out quietly every night to collect these things with the mentality of giving it a try. Half a semester later, Lily's fierce and rebellious behavior made her classmates no longer dare to treat her like before, and instead they became alienated from her. Because of this, Lily was less troubled. In the first semester of her sophomore year of high school, after the monthly exam, although she was not among the top 10 in her grade, half a year of hard work paid off and she was ranked within the 50th grade. Ranked in the top 20 in the class. Such achievements made the class teacher no longer look at her as bored as before, and it was rare that he even gave her an extra smile before the holiday. Lily spent the whole winter vacation busy, and she found a way to master Taoism and martial arts. More importantly, She remembered that there is a magic in goo magic that can strengthen people's souls. I don't know if it's useful, but now she only has a dead horse as a living horse doctor. The time traveler could easily take over Feng Liang's body, partly because he was an immortal cultivator. The reason why the soul is originally stronger than that of ordinary people, on the other hand, is also because Feng Liang is a fool himself and the soul resistance is not high. After Lily gained some Taoist skills, she drew talismans on Feng Liang every day, although she didn't know the effect was not much, but she still tried it every day and would often feed Feng Liang some of the bugs she had cultivated. Fortunately, these are things that normal people probably won't eat. But Feng Liang ignorantly followed her words. Anyway, until the beginning of the second semester of his second year of high school, Feng Liang had no sign of being time-traveled. Before school started, Lily collected another batch of bugs and raised them with her own essence and blood. Her current body is due to practicing martial arts and Taoism, so the bugs fed with blood are better than the ones raised with ordinary blood. Much more. The previous batch of goo worms seemed to be almost mature. Lily closed the lid again. After letting the last few insects eat each other, he drew the talisman on Feng Liang's body again. At the beginning of the new semester, everyone walked into the classroom in twos and threes. When Lily entered the classroom, many people barely recognized her. Her long hair was tied up, because her life in the past 6 months has not been as miserable as before, so her complexion looks much better. Her complexion has returned to the whiteness unique to a girl, and the heavy flow in the past has also been tied up by her. Revealing a full forehead, many students discovered that this person had lowered his head in the past. The classmate whose face was unrecognizable actually did not look as obscene as everyone imagined. Although her figure still has the youthfulness of a girl, her high school uniform still makes her look different from others. Among a group of naive girls, Lily seemed to have a kind of stability and calmness that young people did not have, but it happened that the corners of her oval eyes were raised when she looked at people. There seems to be a hint of charm, and the somewhat deserted face is matched with this hint of charm. Even though the male classmates in the class couldn't explain what this feeling was, it still didn't stop them from quickly changing their views on Lily. For a while, because Lily had changed so much, and perhaps because the class had just started and it was still fresh, no one came to trouble Lily in the first 2 days, until half a month later. The school has just started for a few days, and the school is organizing a spring outing. Because almost most of the students in Teacher Wang's class are rich, this spring outing is naturally not like ordinary classes, just going to the park. After much discussion, Yuan Yelan paid out 50,000 yuan and invited everyone in the class to a famous hot spring village on the outskirts of the city for 2 nights and 3 days. This hot spring city was originally a barren mountain. After someone dug out hot springs there a few years ago, the land suddenly became hot and was bought by several wealthy businessmen and powerful people in Beijing. A resort has been built, and the fees are very expensive. Even those with a well-off family may not be able to stay there for a few days. Because of the good environment and good service, it is often difficult to get a ticket, and almost everyone who greets them is he was a dignitary, and many people couldn't help but get excited when they heard that they could travel there. "Teacher, I'm sorry, I can't go." When everyone was having a heated discussion about going to the hot spring village to play, Lily thought of Feng Liang and said something to Teacher Huang, who was registering and arranging everyone's accommodation. As soon as she finished speaking, she looked a little surprised. Naturally, her female classmates who disliked her sneered, but there was also a time when Lily's appearance changed and she showed a bit of excellence, which changed her impression of her. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 749. Indeed, this method of playing is very simple. You just throw the bouquet out casually. How far you throw it depends on your strength and luck. This thing is thin and light, and the wind may affect your performance. Several women have nothing to do, so they all come here. Interested, Lily's eyes turned cold when Fu Banian said the last words. Fu Banian looked at her and smiled, with an indescribable touching look in his eyes. In her previous life, she couldn't hold her head up in front of this group of nobles. She didn't expect that in the turn of events, nobles like that back then would humiliate her in front of her. Fu Bibai was happy in his heart, but had a calm smile on his face. She has maintained this smile since her rebirth, and it has become like a mask for her. Her charming eyes seemed to contain a sultry brilliance. Everyone was stunned when they heard her calling Lily to pick up the show ball. There were so many people and eunuchs, but she opened her mouth. The little eunuch who was about to come forward quickly lowered his eyelids. Everyone stared at Lily as if mockingly, obviously they all wanted to make fun of Lily. Lily felt murderous intent in her heart. She took 2 steps to pick up the show ball and looked at it in her hand. The silk fabric used for the show ball was excellent, and it was a bit more gorgeous than the dress she was wearing. With malicious eyes in the eyes of everyone around her, she suddenly stretched out her hand and threw the show ball towards Fu Bibai. In the past 2 months, she had been practicing star training. She already had some spiritual power in her body, and her strength was naturally stronger than that of Fu Bibai. Fu Banian was a little older, and when the show ball was thrown, it hit her face. Fu Banian subconsciously wanted to get up and hide, but Lily controlled the force well, and she just stood up. The bouquet landed lightly in front of Fu Bibai. She moved too much, but the bouquet did not hit her. Such a move was undoubtedly a bit embarrassing. Fu Bibai's expression suddenly became ugly. He also followed the other's example and covered his mouth with his sleeves and smiled. The prince's wife threw it so well, I even became interested in it. Queen Liu's brows suddenly wrinkled. Fu Bibai had just stood up to hide from the bouquet and looked a little embarrassed because the bouquet had fallen. Mrs. Fu glanced at her, although everyone must have looked down upon her. Lily's. But it is precisely because Lily's status is low at this time. She is also extremely thick-skinned, so everyone dislikes her to the extreme. No matter how bad their impression of her is now, it cannot be any worse. But Fu is different for 100 years. The impression she had left on everyone's minds was excellent. At this time, she lost her composure, and the slightest mistake would inevitably make Mrs. Fu unhappy, and she looked at her several times. Fu Banian glanced at Lily coldly, then took a deep breath and picked up the bouquet. It doesn't matter if you are in a good mood, you are just in the mood to throw it, and you can also pick it up and throw it back. It kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Originally, Fu Banian just thought about herself in the previous life and felt a little unwilling. She just felt sorry for herself at that time and wanted to vent her anger. But for some reason, seeing Lily still in such a miserable state reminded her of the embarrassment in her previous life. The more she wanted to see her look the same as herself, she even suspected that she was sent to the palace in her previous life, and that Lily could marry Prince Lu because of some conspiracy behind her back. After all, the Fu sisters fought so fiercely back then. Why were the other girls sent to the palace and not having a good end? Why was Fu Beihe the only one who got a good ending? Isn't that what she relies on for her ruthlessness? The more Fu Bibai thought about it, the colder her expression became. She threw the bouquet out and signaled Lily to pick it up again. People around could not see that there was any quarrel between the 2 sisters of the Fu family, so they were all happy to watch the fun. Lily stood still and did not move. Bai Baron reached out and brushed his hair. Just when he was about to speak, a series of footsteps rang out, and Emperor Liang Qi's somewhat excited voice came over. "What are you, my beloved concubines, playing at? You are in such good spirits." A large group of people came towards the side, surrounded by a tall old man with a grey beard, wearing a purple python dragon robe, followed by Yan Su, who was dressed in silver satin and embroidered with gold threads. Beside him, a group of royal family members led by the new Emperor Liang Qi of the Great Zhou dynasty surrounded the father and son. Emperor Liang Qi, who had always been majestic in the harem, even if he tried to straighten his back at this time, under the Yan family in front of the father and son, there was a bit of gloom for no reason, especially when the courtiers around him looked fawning and smiled at the Yan family and his son, which made Liang Qi's face even more ugly. Since the time of the late emperor, the Zhou royal family has been suppressed by the Yan family for many years. The education Liang Qi received since childhood was to one day eradicate the Yan family and regain the Liang family's power. He also thought about being a good emperor in his heart, but even if no matter how many ambitions he had in his heart, it was all in vain when he couldn't even touch the edge of power. When the Duke of Yan was young, he married a lady from a wealthy family. After the marriage, he only had a legitimate son, Yansu. His first wife passed away many years ago. There were countless women in the Zhou dynasty who wanted to marry into the Duke of Yan and become his second wife, but he did not accept them. Refuse. Yansu's marriage has been delayed until now because there is no hostess in the house. Liang Qi was in a bad mood today. He thought that as the emperor of the great Zhou dynasty, but now he had to be angry with a minister, and he had to laugh and please in front of the Yan family's father and son. At this moment, he felt really depressed. When he ascended the throne at a young age, he should have been extremely glorious, but the imperial power of the great Zhou dynasty was not in his hands. Now that Yansu was 20 years old, the ceremony was even more grand and glorious than when he ascended the throne. This made Liang Qi very angry when he thought about it. It's not enough that he doesn't want to hold this banquet. Duke Yan has given the order. Who in the palace will listen to him? Officials of the third and higher ranks of the Zhou dynasty were invited into the palace. The only thing that comforted Liang Qi was that he saw Fu Bibane in his extreme depression. He originally tied his hands in his sleeves and followed the Duke of Yan with lowered eyebrows and eyes. As an emperor, he was now reduced to one of the courtiers' fawning objects. Liang Qi felt very unhappy. But when he entered the back garden, he saw Fu Bibai, who was sitting not far from Queen Lu. Her face had lost the slight baby fat she had when she was unmarried, and her facial lines had become more refined and obvious. Compared with the way she looked when he first met her, she seemed it was a bit more beautiful, but Liang Qi felt sour and astringent in his heart. He, the emperor, was so useless. He could see but couldn't touch his beloved woman, who was obviously only a few steps away. But it seemed like there was a gap between them. In order to win the support of the Lu family and defeat Duke Yan as soon as possible, he reluctantly watched Fu Bibai marry into the Lu family, watch her give birth to children for his eldest cousin, and watch her rise and fall more and more day by day. Beautiful, but it is a pity that these scenery do not belong to him. He held it in his hand, and a brocade handkerchief in his sleeve was sweating a little. Liang Qi secretly recited Fu Bibai's name several times. Since Duke Yan entered the palace, for the first time, he took the initiative to stand up from behind him. He came over to a group of women. I find it interesting. Why don't you explain it to me in 100 years? Liang Qi took Fu Balian's hand and tried his best to stop himself from looking at Fu Balian out of the corner of his eye. He called Fu Balian's name. It sounded a little strange to the ears of the Fu family and Queen Lu. There are 200 years, Lotus, in total here. One is Princess Lu, and the other is a good concubine in the palace. Liang Qi used to call Fu Balian's name most. At that time, everyone didn't think anything of it, but now when he was called in front of two people whose names sounded the same, they felt as if he was calling Princess Lu. Fu Bibai frowned slightly. When she saw Liang Qi, her heart tightened and she lost her favorable impression. Although Liang Qi tried his best to restrain himself, his eyes were still like fire. She had been favored for many years in her previous life and knew very well what Liang Qi's character was. She didn't know that he was interested in her at the moment. She regretted that she stood up and humiliated Lily today just to vent her anger. Now she has become the Crown Princess Lu. The former high-ranking Crown Princess Lu has now become the Princess Lu. Like a resentful wife in the palace, she has no children and no favors. She will undoubtedly be relegated to the cold palace in a few years. She may not even live for a few more years. Now that she has won the battle, why should she argue with her? Led Liang Qi over. She took 2 steps back and hid her figure behind her mother-in-law, avoiding Liang Qi's hot eyes. Fu Balian on the other side didn't seem to notice everyone's weirdness. She first invited Yan Kuagong and his son to, then he pointed at Lily with a smile and started laughing. Back to the emperor, the crown princess Xiaoao saw that it was still early for the dinner and had nothing to do, so she suggested throwing the bouquets for fun. It was quite simple. She just threw them out and bothered Mr. Fu to pick them up. The crown princess gave them to the concubines. After giving a demonstration and just getting ready to play, the duke and the emperor came. In the past, Fu Balian was favored in the palace. In addition to her similar facial features to Fu Balian, she also had a name that sounded the same as Fu Balian. The emperor loved to call her Baiwen, as if by calling her name like this, he was upright. As if the light was calling the person in his heart, Liang Qi listened absently to Fu Balian's words. Originally he had no interest in playing tricks among women, but when he heard that this game was proposed by Fu Balian, his heart went bang bang, jumped up. He then turned to look at Lily. Just now, the palace concubines and ladies were sitting on both sides, and Lily stood suddenly in the middle. The reason why Liang Qi didn't notice her before was just because his eyes fell on her. Fu Balian could no longer move away from him. Now he followed Fu Balian's hand and saw Lily, and his brows suddenly wrinkled. In the past, he used Fu Baihe as Fu Baihe's substitute for a long time. He asked her to learn how Fu Baihe spoke and how he dressed. In such a few years, even a pug should be raised. Feelings came to him, but at this moment, there was no sense of familiarity in his eyes, as if he were a stranger, and he obviously did not recognize Lily at all. To be continued. P.S. First update. I didn't post it last night, but it's like this. Coders generally circulate a software called Little Black Room, which means that after locking the word count, if you don't finish typing the word count, you can't get it out no matter how you restart it. When I was coding last night, I locked 3,000 words. As a result, there was a problem with my input method. I couldn't type a single word, and I had locked up 3,000 words and still had 2,000 words left to finish. It was so refreshing, can you believe it? I really had tears and snot running down my face. I couldn't type and couldn't get out of the software. I had no choice but to see the time passing by. In the end, I had to upload it first. As a result, I worked until around 8 or 9 in the morning. I finished writing the novel and uploaded it after fixing the computer. Then, because I didn't sleep at night, I slept for a long time during the day. In the afternoon, I went out to buy building materials. Because I was renovating, I was late again today. There may be one less update in today's update, but the number of words remains the same. I have to choose building materials again tomorrow. Please give me some time. I have to get through this period and will add more updates. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 750. Liang Qi glanced at Lily impatiently, and then his eyes fell on the flower ball not far in front of her. The flower ball was made of light silk. It was blown by the evening wind and rolled twice on the ground. Son, Liang Qi frowned and shouted. Since the crown prince's wife has given the order, why don't you pick it up? What kind of humble maidservant in this palace can't even look at people and wait on her, so what's the use of keeping you? His sweetheart spoke, but Lily stood still. Liang Qi was furious. If he had a sword in his hand at this moment, he might have pierced Lily's throat with the sword. He stared at Lily with a sinister expression, his eyes it was full of displeasure. When the people around him heard this, they couldn't help biting their lips and lowering their heads, obviously holding back their laughter. The seventh girl, who was a direct descendant of the Fu family, clearly had such a noble status back then. After entering the palace, even though her title was not high when she was canonized, she still had the status of a noble person. However, the emperor had completely forgotten about her at this moment, obviously treating her as a servant serving in some palace. This attitude was even more contemptuous than Liang Qi's direct request to slap Lily. When Fu Banian heard this, he couldn't help but curl up the corner of his mouth, and was deeply afraid of letting her down. When the person saw it, he lowered his head and went to take the handkerchief to wipe the sweat, and suppressed the raised corners of his mouth. The palms under Lily's sleeves turned into fists. If she hadn't killed the emperor now, her mission might have failed. She really wanted to break the emperor's neck. Liang Qi was only 23 this year. He was a young and romantic man, and he was quite handsome. However, due to his constant frustration, there was a bit of gloom between his brows. The bright yellow robe worn on him not only failed to show off his aura was suppressed by the aura of Yan Kuogong and his son not far away, making Liang Qi feel a little depressed. She was such a loser, but she had to endure it for this mission. She couldn't kill the emperor at this time. She endured it with a calm smile on her face. Yan Su stood next to Duke Yan. Seeing the calm look on her face, she bent down to pick up the bouquets. The sight of people around her laughing at her made Yan Su purse her mouth into a straight line, and her eyes were dark and inexplicable. Pick up the bouquet. Someone from the palace presented it to Liang Qi. The cold silk satin seemed to still carry the delicious fragrance of Fu Balian. Liang Qi resisted the urge to put the bouquet away and fumbled for a long time in his palm. Fu Balian on the other side had a pair of charming eyes. There was a sarcastic look in his eyes. Your Majesty is wrong. I dare to remind you. This is Mr. Fu. She is not a servant in the palace. She is my seventh sister and the direct descendant of my third uncle. Where's the girl? Liang Qi heard this. Without raising his head, he couldn't bear to move his eyes away from the flower ball at this moment. It was as if he had indirectly touched Fu Bibai's skin through the smooth touch of silk satin. He snorted and didn't take it seriously. Fu Balian didn't explain this. It's okay. When he explained, Liang Qi only showed this attitude, which showed more and more contempt for Lily, which made people want to laugh. Empress Lu smiled with contentment, and Mrs. Fu of the Fu family turned pale. Looking at Lily as if he was cutting her out with a knife, obviously because she thought this granddaughter had lost her ugliness, Mrs. Fu-san kept her head lowered, not even looking at Lily. Judging from Mrs. Fu-san's actions, Lily, I knew that it would not work if I wanted to rely on the Fu family. She felt a bit cruel in her heart. Since the Fu family could no longer go on this road, she would not be able to live well, and the Fu family would not be able to live in peace. Fu Balian was stumbling upon her everywhere today, and she would make Fu Balian pay the price later. She has practiced Shin Chen Taijutsu for more than 2 months now, and in about half a year at most, it will not be difficult to kill Fu Balian. She has murderous intention in her heart, but it does not show on her face. Mr. Fu, who was standing behind Duke Yan, was looking at his nose and heart, as if he didn't hear the farce happening here. Liang Qi held the flower ball for a long time, and then he raised his head reluctantly. Come. My lord, it's such a beautiful day today. It's rare for all of you to gather together and have such joy. This method of play that Princess Xiaoyao has come up with is really novel. Why don't we all sit down and play together? You come and pick up the ball, Liang Qi first. He smiled flatteringly at the Yan family's father and son, but when his eyes fell on Lily, he suddenly became cold. Even though Fu Balian had just said that Lily was not a servant of any palace, Liang Qi still insisted on treating her as a servant. Looking at the servants, when he saw Fu Banian, Grief and anger surged into his heart. In fact, if he had insisted on asking for Fu Banian that day, the Fu family would definitely send him over because he was the emperor, but he didn't dare, he was cowardly, and he was afraid of offending the Lu family. If the Lu family didn't help him, he would never get back the power that was taken away by the Yan family. For the sake of the throne and the country, he endured the heartache to see the pearl in his heart marry his cousin, but Liang Qi still felt resentful in his heart. He did not dare to think about his own cowardice and incompetence, he could only blame others, as if this was the only way in his heart. Can calm down. He hated that the person who married Prince Lu that day was not Fu Beihe, but Fu Banian. Not to mention that he had no feelings for Fu Beihe at all, and he didn't remember who she was at all. Even if he did, Liang Qi was here. Even if he is full of resentment, he may also vent his anger on her. He didn't dare to attack the people of the Fu family or be disrespectful to the people of the Lu family. As the emperor of the Zhou dynasty, he could only stay with one minister. As an emperor, he did not have dignity and could not be offended. The people of the Fu and Lu families seemed to be able to breathe a sigh of relief from a little girl, and Liang Qi's originally curved back straightened up. At this moment, Lily began to consider that if she accidentally killed Liang Qi on the spot, and if the mission failed, she would have to go back to the starry sky and ask Li Yangzi to rearrange a mission for her. She tightened her palms, then tightened them and loosened them. Her face was calm, her eyelids drooped slightly to block her sight, but the killing intent came out of her eyes. Before she could speak, Yansu suddenly flicked her clothes and laughed softly. Today, Yansu was wearing a long gown with silver satin embroidered with gold patterns. The jade belt around his waist was tied a little lower, but with the support of his long legs, his waist was exposed. Golden color was originally a color exclusive to the emperor, and was used by courtiers and nobles. It was a big taboo, but he wore it out loudly. Liang Qi had seen it before, but swallowed his anger and acted as if he didn't hear it. His hair was tied up with a jade crown, and the jade crown belt hung down on both sides of his face. On his chest, there were a few jade beads tied at the end of the belt. It was rare to see him dressed up so seriously. Compared with his previous casual appearance, he had a bit more extraordinary style. The Yan family came from a noble family, and he himself was extremely handsome. The ears of several unmarried girls from the Fu family turned slightly red, thinking about his purpose of choosing a concubine today, and they raised their heads to peek at him from time to time. If others did not dare to laugh at this time, even if Empress Lu and others wanted to laugh just now, they would have to hold back and just purse their lips, but Yansu laughed without any scruples. Er's smile was for others and would not attract everyone's attention. But when Yansu smiled, not only a group of women's eyes fell on him, but also Mr. Fu Lehe and his son, and Lu Shizi and his son who had been silent. They all subconsciously raised their heads and stared at him. Yansu stretched out his hand and flicked the hem of his clothes. He flicked the jade pendant hanging on his waist, and the tassels swayed slightly. The jade was warm, clear, and lovely green. Even the palace might not be able to get such a good thing. Come up with a few items. When the Zhou dynasty conquered the world, most of the valuable things were swept into the pockets of the Yan family. In order to show his benevolence, the founding emperor of the Yuan dynasty did not ask the old officials to hand over the things. The Yan family has been in charge of the government for many years. The Yan family is like the real treasure house of the Zhou dynasty. There may not be anything that can be taken out of the palace, but the Yan family has everything. But he hangs such a priceless treasure on his waist without caring. Liang Qishun looking at him, his expression suddenly turned ugly. As the emperor today, he had already dressed up formally. He just didn't want to look down in front of the Yan family and his son, but at this time, a simple pendant for Yansu was enough. Liang Qi felt embarrassed by making Liang Qi look shabby. He originally thought that this would be the most, but he endured the resentment and said with a smile. I wonder what Yansu thinks is so funny about my proposal. Before he could say the last word, Yansu turned to look at him casually. He was tall and his shoulders were wider than the thin Liang Qi. At this moment, looking at him sideways, he was actually extremely disrespectful to Liang Qi. Everyone saw something was wrong at this moment and did not dare to breathe. Liang Qi saw his disrespectful actions and his hands and feet became cold with anger. Unfortunately, it made him even more angry. The embarrassing thing for him is still to come. The king of a country only knows how to play and play around all day long. The ideas proposed by a woman are also praised as good, and he has nothing to do. No wonder the late emperor did not trust to leave the kingdom of the Zhou dynasty in your hands before he died. When Liang Qi's face turned blue and white, Yan Su turned his eyes away again and fell on Lily, who was squinting her eyes. The corners of her mouth slightly curved, and then she turned her eyes away from her. His understatement and lazily lecturing tone were not serious, and he did not have the fierceness and inner anger that Liang Qi had when he scolded Lily just now. However, his momentum was more than 100 times stronger than Liang Qi's, he was so gentle. Standing there, no one dared to ignore him. He did not pretend to be strong or domineering, but his words made Liang Qi's blood rush from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. For a moment, Liang Qi only felt his ears buzzing, his lips were trembling, and his hands were shaking violently. The late emperor did not want to hand over the kingdom of Zhou dynasty to him when he died. It was clearly the ambition of the Yan family. He held the power and refused to give it back. He was the majestic emperor of Zhou, but now in front of a group of people, he was treated humiliatingly by Yan Su. Liang Qi's legs were numb and his soul almost flew out of his body. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan ERWR. Chapter 751. At this moment, Liang Qi seemed to be able to see the faces of the people around him without raising his head. He could feel the looks of surprise and embarrassment when people fell on his face. These people were laughing at him. It was as if he was looking through another self, seeing himself clenching his teeth, clenching his fists, veins on the back of his hands pulsing, and his face flushed. He didn't dare to look at Fu Bibai's face. Being taught by Yan Su like this in front of his sweetheart, he felt like a son just like teaching me a lesson. He was far more embarrassed than Lily at this moment. Liang Qi wished he could kill Yan Su on the spot. His head was hot, his temples were throbbing, and the pain was severe, and he would not be able to return to his place after a long time. Duke Yan glanced at his son in surprise, but saw the corners of Yan Su's mouth curled up slightly and his eyes cold. His eyes fell on the emperor whose face was green and white again. At this moment, Yan Su taught Liang Qi a lesson. Although Yan Su's attitude surprised Duke Yan, but in front of a group of people, it was naturally impossible for Duke Yan to turning his elbows outward. According to the current power of the Yan family, in addition to not having the title of emperor, the Zhou royal family is no longer in their eyes, even if Liang Qi is determined to win over the Fu and Lu families to deal with their father and son. But it was just a mantis trying to block the car. Duke Yan gave the emperor a contemptuous look. This useless waste had only this little potential left, and he still wanted to seize power from him. My son is right, the emperor does not do his job properly. He should read more and read more all day long, and spend less time hanging out with ignorant women. Duke Yan was not only tall, but also had a voice as loud as a bell. When he spoke, Empress Lu and others in the harem were the expressions of the women he referred to as ignorant women all looked a little ugly, but no one dared to argue with them. Even the emperor was taught a lesson like a grandson. If a few women dared to speak, Yan Kuagong would kill them on the spot. I am afraid the emperor would not dare to hum. Fu Bibai stood among a group of women, clenching his fists tightly. This game was her suggestion. She originally just wanted to humiliate Lily, but she didn't expect that she was scolded rudely by the Yan family's father and son who took advantage of the situation. She believed that she was no worse than Mr. Yanguo. After all, before time travel, she had worked as a white-collar worker in a multinational company for many years, and in her previous life, she had stayed in the palace for a few years. Unfortunately, she had a bad fate and became a woman, so she could not do anything in this world. Yanguo, my father is just a rough ancient man. If they weren't from a good background, the Yan family's father and son might not be able to compare with her based on their individual abilities. What Fu Bibai was most dissatisfied with was being looked down upon by others. Unfortunately, she knew very well that the Yan family was powerful. In her previous life, the Yan family was still fighting fiercely with the Fu and Lu families before her death, and she was reborn. I know the importance of patience, so I feel unconvinced. But he didn't dare to tell the difference with his mouth, he just swallowed his anger and acted as if he didn't hear it, but he secretly resented it in his heart. He was so out of control today that he suffered such humiliation at this moment. At this time, when the emperor heard the lesson from Duke Yan, he felt as if his soul had returned to his body. He was greatly stimulated. After being lectured like this one after another, my hands and feet were still extremely numb. His lips moved, but he could not speak at all. Feeling lightheaded, Duke Yan sneered. Read more 4 books and 5 classics, and write 5 articles. Listening to Duke Yan's lesson, the blood in Liang Qi's heart suddenly started to boil, and a muscle in his neck beat very fast. He was already in his 20s at this time, and he had already become the emperor, but the Yan family, the younger father and son, had ruined him and the older one still wanted to come. Now the Duke of Yan was treating him, a dignified king of a country, as if he were a grandson who had made a mistake. He endured the resentment in his heart. He neither wanted to agree to this nor dared to refute it. Had no choice but to look at Mr. Fu and Mr. Lu beside him. Lao Xiaoao lowered his head at the moment, not daring to look at him, while Mr. Fu squinted his eyes, put his hands in his sleeves, and his whole body was filled with excitement. As if he was asleep, the surroundings were quiet. Duke Yan glanced at him contemptuously, waiting for his reply. Liang Qi felt that he was alone and helpless. He endured it for a long time. When Duke Yan saw that he did not answer for a long time, his expression became a little impatient, and there was murderous intent in his eyes. Liang Qi felt a chill in his heart. At this time, he hated both the Fu family and his own grandfather. Seeing the unkind look on Yan Kuagong's face, he endured the humiliation and responded tremblingly. 1 sentence. The lesson learned by Duke Yan is right, I understand. The words seemed to be squeezed out from between his teeth. Liang Qi's fingernails were dug into his flesh at this time, but he felt no pain. Yan, it was as if the father and son had slapped him in the face. He could no longer find the arrogance he had when he faced Lily just now. His whole body was like a withered eggplant, and he lowered his head. Humph! After teaching everyone, Duke Yan was as old as a ginger. Naturally, he could see the unwillingness and resentment in Liang Qi's eyes, but he didn't care. No matter how dissatisfied Liang Qi was, it didn't matter. With the palm in his hands, what about the emperor? It's just a pug in the palm of his hand, and he can play with it as he wants. He glanced impatiently at a group of women. He originally wanted to choose the concubine among these women for his son Yansu, but he turned his eyes away. Under his gaze, each of these women's expressions changed. Hua Qing, who just forced himself to calm down and did not move away, was obviously frightened by him. Seeing this, Duke Yan was even more dissatisfied. He rolled his eyes coldly and frowned. The scene became colder for a while, and Liang Qi's face turned red. After being scolded by Duke Yan, he still couldn't raise his head. Mr. Fu pretended to be deaf and dumb, and Mr. Lu could only speak out to smooth things over. Today is such a great day, what state affairs should we talk about? My father is worried about government affairs, and rarely relaxes on weekdays. I am also worried that the emperor is not young. When the power is returned to the emperor in the future, the burden on the emperor's shoulders will be too heavy. It's just that today the emperor he also has good intentions. The prince is a talented person. Now he is in the weak position and has not married yet. The incense of the Yan family has not been passed down yet. It is better to take advantage of this good night. If the prince likes a lady from a certain family, the emperor can issue an edict to fulfill it. A divine marriage. When Fu Balian pointed out that what happened today was Fu Bibai's work, Mr. Lu already felt unhappy. Fu Bibai, the daughter-in-law, usually seemed to be a good person, and she knew the rules very well without saying a word. Thinking of entering the palace, she became arrogant. There were many people in the palace today, and the Lu family was in such a position. She did not try to keep a low profile, but she got into trouble all the time. Mr. Lu couldn't see how Fu Bibai proposed such a trick. She specifically asked Lily, the former Fu family member who had discussed marriage with her son, to pick it up in order to humiliate her natal sisters. Even if there were any grudges in the past, the woman's vision was too short-sighted. It had been so long. If there are many ways to teach an unpopular palace man a lesson in private, why must he make it impossible for him to step down now? This not only shows his pettiness, but also his lack of restraint. Now he has also brought trouble to the Lu family, forcing him to come forward. Thinking that Fu Banian's behavior might just be because Bai had discussed marriage with his son in the past, Mr. Lu felt that Fu Banian was too narrow-minded, and he became a little wary. After Fu Banian married into the Lu family, because of his beauty and dignity, the man is considered smart, and he also wins the favor of his son. Within a few years, he gave birth to his grandchildren one after another. Now, in order to fight for Liang Qi to return to the country, he really has no time to care about his son's private affairs, so Prince Lu only doted on Fu and had no concubines for 100 years, and he turned a blind eye. Now it seems that he should give Prince Lu more concubines and marry a concubine. What the Lu family needs is dignity. A majestic mistress, not such a jealous woman. When Mr. Lu was making up his mind, he never thought about whether Fu Bibai would like it or not. Anyway, if she didn't want to, it would be very easy for her to get seriously ill and die. The Fu family is not lacking in other things and there are so many girls. At this juncture, even if Fu Bibai was favored again, he did not believe that the old fox of the Fu family would stand up for her. All kinds of thoughts passed through his mind quickly. Mr. Lu finished his words with a smile, but Liang Qi didn't necessarily appreciate it. He resented the Yan family and his father and son for humiliating him, but at the same time he also resented Mr. Lu for not speaking out for him just now. At this time, he had already admitted his mistake and was punished by Duke Yan in front of Fu Bibai. The article said that he was a very useless emperor. Mr. Lu just said these words now, but they were just hindsight. Liang Qi was originally in his 20s and was arrogant. He had anger in his heart, but he was just too strong now. He endured not venting his anger. When Duke Yan heard what Lu Haoyi said, he did not endure it like Liang Qi did. Instead, he laughed coldly. Return the political power to him, he pointed to Liang Qi's nose, raised his head and laughed. When the emperor was old, he only knew how to eat, drink and play with women. Now he even has to play with things like showing off the ball. How can the political power be returned to him? Didn't he ruin the kingdom of Zhou dynasty? His words were really heart-wrenching. Liang Qi's lips were trembling and his face turned pale. Duke Yan pointed at him and scolded him, "This Zhou dynasty's although the person surnamed Liang is sitting on the throne of Zhongshan now, it was my father who knocked me down with punches and kicks. He wanted me to be handed over to such a yellow-haired boy. Lu Yi, I will treat you as old and fatuous today. If you do it again, next time, don't blame me for being ruthless." Duke Yan snorted, and Liang Qi felt like a firecracker exploded in his head. Wresting the political power from the hands of the Yan family has been the wish of the late emperor. The former emperor was controlled by others all his life and served as a puppet emperor all his life. He finally survived until the death of the old Duke of Yan, but now the Duke of Yan has succeeded him. He was addicted to being an emperor even before he died. After being an emperor all his life, in the end, in addition to taking on the title, the only documents he read were those that Duke Yan had processed and picked up a few insignificant ones for him to read until his death. He died in depression. His lifelong wish was to make the descendants of the Liang family truly the masters of the country. Liang Qi's wish from the time he ascended the throne was to truly be an emperor. He put in a lot of effort for this, even his beloved woman he didn't dare to ask for it. In order to win over the Lu family, he gave it to Prince Lu. But now Duke Yan made it clear that he would not return the power. He felt like he had been hit on the head with a stick several times and had a severe headache. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come.